I'll pass the flame.
The flame.
There's a candle
at the
here.
end of this, pass the flame.
Can I do your job? Can I be like, for those of you who are not joining us on the video medium?
Oh, nice.
Can I do that?
Yes, that's perfect.
In my BBC presenter voice.
Nice.
And for those of you who have just joined us.
Right. So, Kristina, you do audio. You do vocal recording.
I don't.
Voiceovers.
I don't record them.
Right.
Someone.
But it is your
thankfully
voice.
does it for me. Someone like Val. Be like Val.
Yeah. Valid Val.
Valid Val.
Sir Valid Val.
For those of you who have just joined us, Val is the sound technician for ThinkSpace podcast.
Yes.
Here at Self-Hired.
Oh, damn, that's good. So
thanks.
As what do you call yourself then? As
Kristina, most days.
Right. What do you call yourself as someone who records voiceovers? What is that called?
Well,
what is that occupation?
I mean, people say they're voiceover artists or voice actors.
Voice actors.
Yeah, I mean, I just say that I'm an actor. I wouldn't highlight that I'm a voice actor, mostly because I know some very talented voice actors in the city who are working a lot, and it's a very small community, right. And it's incredible. Like, actually, Vancouver has some of the most amazing voice actors, so and it's very different.
Okay, but you're a voice actress.
This is one of those conversations where people always ask, do you want to be an actor or an actress? Like, what do you prefer?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I used to change on the day and just be like, today I feel like I should be an actress, and I feel like you should honor the fact that men and women are different. And then other times I call myself guy, and I call my roommate guy, and she's not a guy. So I'm pretty
non-binary. Fluid?
Well, I don't know if is it non-binary?
It's whatever you want.
Well, I feel like guy is binary. You've just chosen the opposite side and then refused to allow it the same power or the same association. So
too quick in the podcast. Okay, way too quick. Take 10 steps back there. Okay.
Let's talk about Val again.
See, that's where I was just like, I was thinking really hard about structure and how I wanted to do this. And I was like, this is how it's going to go is you're going to sit down and I'm going to say, Kristina, how's your week? And then that's going to be gone. And then it's just, and then we're off 3, 4, 5, 10 hours later. Could you imagine? That's why you brought the candlelight, burning the midnight fuel.
Chan has like a signal that she's going to give me when she's tired and needs to sleep.
Which is very close. Very close.
She's that guy.
Makes me uncomfortable for some reason. I don't know.
Does it?
Anyway, so the point I was trying to make is, as a voice actor,
I'll go with that.
You outsource your voice to other people, right? You sell your voice in a way. This is very true. Like
Ariel does to Ursula in The Little Mermaid.
Right. Very much so. Exactly. So, but I mean, for a minute, you're probably charging at least a couple $100, right? Like, just generally, if you're that good, which you are.
Funnily enough, I was having this conversation today with in the entertainment industry, and it could be different in different places, but for us it's about the buyout and the usage.
Right.
So it's not necessarily like you'd get a day rate, and then you would get a buyout, and the buyout amount would be based on whether or not it is being used on like social media platforms only, website only, so online distribution, national versus international, which territories, and then term of usage. So it would be 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, and then you would normally get the equivalent of options. So
you're going to invoice us at the end of this. That's what I'm assuming, because this is going to be quite some time.
You must pay me in poems,
in poems.
Puns. Yes,
poems and puns.
Yes,
I like
interest will be in cake.
Right. So one slice a week delivered to my doorstep.
Yes, exactly. And not left. Don't do one of those things where who were the companies that they were warring? I think it was it Amazon or Apple and Microsoft, and one of them sent truckloads of pennies.
Oh my gosh,
payment.
I do remember that.
Do you remember when that happened?
I do remember that. And yeah.
Bree, could you look up who those companies were?
Please do. In the meantime,
Okay.
anyways, Kristina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank
You've taken
you.
this whole set over.
Well-
You've bombarded us with stuff. Please explain. What is this?
These are books.
Right.
People use them mostly for knowledge, sometimes for burning. This is a terrible time in human history that we need to acknowledge. This is a flame because I do enjoy telling stories by a fire.
Nice.
And so that's got a nice kind of gimmicky feel.
Name of your podcast. Name of your new podcast.
Well, I was thinking about making a one-woman show at some point.
You just
or
talking to
one-man
yourself.
show.
Whatever you decide. One woman, one man. Whatever you decide
Is
on the day.
That's what you call art, Joss.
Right. Excuse me.
A one-woman show is you talking to yourself.
Right.
I bet all of the actors and actresses will be so happy to hear that.
Sure.
I was thinking about doing a monologue
Right.
for an hour and a half to anyone who will pay me.
But what if no one pays you?
Well, then I'm just busking.
Yikes.
And then everything goes
Virtually.
downhill from there.
Yes.
And I thought about incorporating music and multimedia and dance. I would not dance. I will save everybody that pain. And I was going to call it my career/life coach, Larry. Hi, Larry. Said, why did you have a candle at your last show? And I said, because I like telling stories by a fire. And he said, oh, it needs to be called Kristina Lao. Songs, Tiny Fires.
Tiny fires.
Stories through song, I think is what I was meant to call it. Yeah.
I love it. So there was a story that we were trying to figure out. Brie, did you ever get to the bottom of that?
Yes.
Let's see. Who was the company that shipped? It was like 100 pounds of pennies or something to the
Yeah.
other company. Like that's kind of like that's like corporate mafia shit, like.
Unfortunately, you guys are.
What is this? No, Samsung did not try to
Oh.
pay
It was
Apple.
actually nickels. It wasn't pennies.
Oh.
It's an urban legend or myth, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. So for those
But
of
who
you,
wrote this? Who wrote this blog? How do we know to believe this
The Guardian.
guy? Okay,
I'm
that's
reading this
fine.
in an English
it's
accent.
The Guardian.
Did Samsung pay judgment? So who started this bullshit then? Ugh, clickbait. And here they are. They've made it onto our thing. September 6, 2012. Samsung did not try to pay Apple $1 billion in nickels.
Well, we bought into the lies once
did.
again.
We did. Anywho, well, thanks for clearing that up for us, Brie.
Thank you, Brie.
So the title of this podcast then is Stories Around a Tiny Fire with Kristina Lao.
I don't know that that's what I said. I feel like it's got the right stories
Essence.
around a tiny fire with. It could be so many iterations of that phrase.
Don't worry about it.
Okay,
You're
well-
overthinking. So we have books, we have a fire, and then we
do.
have a box.
Yeah, that's for
and
later.
a paper boat.
Yep, they're for later.
Oh. Well, now I just want to open it now. Can we open it now?
No.
Okay. All right. So collection of books here. What do you got here? You got a couple of things. You have Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist, which has been treated very poorly, which I expect better from you. Turning Pro, Tap Your Inner Power and Create Your Life's Work. Milk and Honey, a book about poems, a book of poems,
Thank
rather.
you. Yep.
And a couple other ones here. What inspired you to bring these books here today and throw them front and center? This is paid advertising space right here. What are you doing?
Is it? Because it's normally empty, so
Oh.
you're clearly not capitalizing on
I know,
that.
so we need some sponsors. Let's get at it.
Speak to
Yeah.
Julia Cameron.
Thank you.
Brene Brown. She's got a new show on Netflix.
Oh, perfect.
Well, there you
I'm
go.
sure she wants to advertise here. Amazing.
What's the question? Why did I bring them?
Yes.
I don't really think too much about it, if I'm honest. I do. One of my favorite quotes is, I have my books and my poetry to protect me. Paul Simon.
You sound crazy.
That's rude. We just started.
Right. It's cool. We've already established these things. They've already heard the intro. They know.
Have they? You told me I get to have some kind of influence on whether you throw everything in here or not.
Right.
You've
Excuse
just,
me.
What,
I haven't
what
decided
have
what
I
I'll
put
say.
myself in for?
We have no control. I told you this right from the start.
I've already forgotten your insult, so I can't rebut it.
I know. It's okay. Anywho, so thank you for bringing the books. Thank you for bringing this box and the fire. And thank you for bringing the insight and the presence and all that. I also love the two little notebooks. Those from Chapters. I think I've bought those exact little books as well.
These are Moleskine Circle R notebooks.
I like it. I like it a lot.
I love them because they are about the size of maybe a pre-teenage hand,
Perfect.
depending on how big you are as a teenager and whether you have abnormally large hands. I like them because they're small and they fit into pockets. And I did an experiment at my last show where I put my poems and writings from that precede each of my songs in the set list into this notebook.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, do I recite the poetry, because I don't know if you can get training to be a poet. I think you just read literature at a prestigious university and you're good.
It, yes.
But I wondered whether or not I should just try and memorize them, or whether I should read them from a book, because there's something so nice when you pull out a story. In Canada, did you have, those little children's shows where there'd be like a man and there was always some kind of very oversized dog by a fire with a couch, and he'd have like a really frail voice.
This is a cultural phenomenon we completely missed.
Really?
Yes.
I don't know, Brie, how to ask you to Google that, but there was a children's television show.
Old Man by a Fire. You might get some weird search results there.
Or Wonderful Ones.
Or Wonderful Ones.
I mean, totally. You told me this was an abyss.
It is an
We've
abyss.
established that abysses are infinite. Thank you, Val. So there's something so nice about someone opening a book to read you a story.
Right. I like it. No, it's amazing. And it's also good to take notes as well. These things are good. I always get intimidated when a guest comes by with notebooks, because I'm here and I feel armed with my pen and my paper.
Oh, and
which
so
I just
if I bring
scribble
pen
down
and
on.
paper, then it's
now
a
it's
competition.
a battle. Now it's a competition, so I have to write more than you do. I make sure that all of my shit here is as she goes. Nothing. Then he does.
I'm writing.
She's beating me as well. I can't talk and think at the same time. You expect me to host a show and do notes? It's ridiculous.
You just set me up for that.
Anyways, well, that's the job of the host. The job of the host is to simply line up T-balls and just have you knock them right off. Here's another one, home run, bang. Here's another one, home run, bang. That's all you're supposed to do as a host.
T-ball?
Baseball, right? Never played.
I played softball once.
Right. So, I digress. You will most likely hate the intro.
You didn't answer what a
answer?
T-ball is. What is a T-ball?
Oh, a T-ball? I don't know.
Excuse me.
I didn't actually know. I didn't know.
Brie has asked us to give her a little bit of time.
I know.
We didn't even give her the time to answer that other question.
It's just fucking derailing.
Only played by children.
T-ball is only played by children. Okay.
When they put, there's no.
Yeah, you put
a stick.
You put the stick on. You put the ball on a stick, and
I've seen.
And you knock it. You home run that. So that's you. That's you.
That's me.
Metaphorically, that's the picture. That great representation. So that's what I'm trying to metaphorically do here. That's your job. That's my job as a host, rather. So
is to be the T.
Is to be the T, and just put the ball there and bam, 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 just knock them off. And that's how we get these perfect little YouTube clips and Instagram clips that everyone shares and watches and shit like that. I always love when people are like, "Oh, I love the podcast." I'm like, "No, you love the clips. You don't love the podcast.
Well, but
you
see,
liar."
that's how I found.
Yes.
I found you.
It's through the clips.
It's through stalking.
Yes.
I mean, the clips.
Right. It's the internet. It's 2019. Stalking is completely allowed. Who do you not stalk at this point? Honestly.
Oh, many people. There's not enough time in the day.
Right. There's 7 billion people on the planet. It's hard. But again, you're probably going to hate the intro that I'll give you. I'm sure. I mean, maybe I won't even throw an intro in there. But what is if you were to define yourself? If you were to define yourself in, what's your elevator pitch? What's your 30 to 60 seconds of, "Hi, I'm Kristina Lao. I do X, Y, Z, P, and Q." Or do you have to go through the whole alphabet?
I feel like that's a very good question, because I can either give you like 8 to like 15 words, or we're here for hours.
No, we're here for hours. That's the sole intention. How long is that candle? That wick's not long enough.
It is a 9-hour candle.
It is a 9-hour candle. Oh my God.
That's not the candle to test. I guess I start with my name. That's always a consistent thing.
Yes.
And then I say that I am a singer-songwriter and an actor and an advocate whose mission is to inspire the world through the love of words.
Wow.
And then I try and stop talking.
Right.
It never works.
No, I've never seen that work yet.
Yep.
I've never even seen you try.
Maybe I was trying. Maybe this is me trying.
Yikes.
Could you imagine?
Wrong spot for you on a podcast then. So
all the best. We have a 9-hour candle.
Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Let's go. Buckle up. So singer-songwriter, paint the picture a little bit more vividly for me, because that does not do you justice. What's your life entail today in 2019? Because singer-songwriter, that's not it. Inspiring the world rather through words is the tip of the iceberg. Well, what more is there? What's your intention? What's your purpose? Why are you here?
Oh, so at 15 minutes in we can get that
absolutely.
existential? Because
It's my
you say
show.
so? Because
It's
you
my
wrote
show.
it down? Okay,
Absolutely.
I see. Yeah,
Yeah.
just making sure we're clear
Yeah,
on that.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think I don't know what my reason is for existing. I think it changes. And we've spoken, before about every 7 years you're an entirely different
This is
person.
very true. So with this iteration of yourself,
This iteration of myself, I think I'm very much a champion of positive social change, and the
Right.
channel that I've chosen to employ is music and acting and storytelling, I guess, would be the blanket term. It's hard to say storytelling because I think it's kind of like a lot of general phrases that it gets used a lot. So I try and stay away from using it, but I'm not really sure I have the words, ironically. Never ever, just as a sidebar, as Joss Biggins says, never really know if I'm using that word correctly, ironically.
which word?
Ironically.
Ironically.
Yeah.
Right.
Alanis Morissette just made my life a living hell
I see.
for so long. Also my hero.
At the same time. So singer-songwriter, inspiring the world through
The love of words.
The love of words, storytelling.
And who I am today is still in hot pursuit of that,
Right.
really, on a daily basis. But I like the concept of positive social change. And
Right.
when I was going through the iterations of what if I could describe me in one sentence, if I could describe my art, if I could describe what I wanted to do in life. Firstly, I was like, I'm a champion of social change and an advocate of the arts and of anything from like education, social emotional learning that my roommate and I recently had a really great conversation about with another friend of ours, and encouraging people to be the best version of themselves. I guess where I landed was, if I can inspire somebody through my songs or through the work that I do as an actor, or or in who I portray as a public figure, to have a better way of articulating and expressing themselves, then I've won. So I guess the best way for me to say that in a shorter way is, if I can give you a song that allows you to understand and articulate your emotions in a way that you couldn't before, then I've done my job.
Then you've won.
Then I've won. Not that it's a competition.
But it is.
But it is.
So that's beautifully well put and articulated. But on a practical level, you do much more. What's your day-to-day look like? What's your LinkedIn look like? Do you have a LinkedIn?
Don't have a LinkedIn.
Well, you should.
Should I? Should is a dangerous word,
It should.
Joss.
You should. It is, yes. Very much so. But if you had a LinkedIn, what would it say?
What does yours say?
Shall we pull it up?
No, we can't
Shall
allude to that.
we?
We can't
Let's
allude. We can't allude to that on this one.
Why? Can we? Oh, we can't.
All
right,
yeah,
fine.
we can't. It's okay though. Compliance, it's
It's fine.
corporate.
We'll just all look it up later,
Yeah,
everybody.
you'll just look it up on your own terms, but I can't allude to it
Own time.
because that'd be advertising.
Oh, I
Anywho,
see. Okay.
rather,
Right.
what would yours say?
What would mine say? I don't know. What do you put on a profile? Hello,
No.
I'm Kristina. I'm a Leo, and I was born in the year of the rat.
See, there
do
you
you
go.
put that on a
Sounding
LinkedIn?
straight crazy.
Is that crazy?
100%.
I don't think that's crazy.
Yeah.
See, nobody agrees with
Would
you.
you hire that person? Hi,
You're
I'm born in the
asking
year
the
of the
crazy
rat.
person if they would hire the crazy person.
Yeah, probably
What do you think my answer is going to be? Yeah,
Yeah.
they sound like a riot.
born in the year of the rat. I'll
Hey,
bring
the
him
rat
in.
is a good year to be born, okay?
I'm born in the year of the rat as well. Yeah, that's right. You're quite a bit older than me. There's the realization right there. Every
That
guest
is
has
a-
it. So that's the next compilation that we'll do. So we have a
Okay.
bunch of compilations coming up of like moments that are reoccurring moments on the podcast. And one of the reactions is when the guest figures out that the
sorry about
host
that.
is a mere infant.
No, we've had this conversation, and I believe you're timeless,
Thank you.
darling.
Thank you.
And that, you know, I mean, we can't, maybe it's probably 18 to 19 minutes in, we can probably talk about reincarnation now. So now that we've gone past existentialism.
But we're still stuck on LinkedIn profile.
Okay, right. Yeah, fast rewind to now. I would say, okay, so I guess my business profile would be that I have a background in business development and client relations. My first degree was in international business. I then worked in client relations for hospitality and entertainment-based industries. I've hosted music festivals. I changed careers and started songwriting and music-based endeavors concurrently while I was working in hospitality and entertainment. About 10 years ago, I picked up the guitar at 24 and then went into a development deal in the UK and graduated as the first Hong Konger from the London School of Music to be accepted into the London School of Musical Theatre.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And now I work for Nimbus School of Recording and Media in community and business development. And I am on the board of directors for a music industry association called Music BC. And I run an indie grassroots collective called Indie Van City and champion emerging artists in Vancouver and BC, providing them with opportunities and other ways to connect and learn about what's happening in the industry and in the music scene, and have a wonderful agent here who represents me for acting and voice.
That's a mouthful. That's pretty good.
That's paper.
It's
on paper.
There's a lot of depth there. There's a lot of writing on that piece of paper, which is impressive. You should stand behind it. I really do. And I know that if I hadn't brought that up, you would just simply whisk that to the side and I'd have to reveal it while you're gone, you know. But it's good to hear it come from the horse's mouth, because I would just butcher it anyways.
I'm sure you wouldn't. I have faith.
Absolutely would. I butcher most things. That's my job. That's why
also
people
not true.
listen.
Well, you
It's a
can't-
slaughterhouse around
So
here.
this is the self-hired slaughterhouse.
The
Awesome.
Self-Hired Slaughterhouse.
Thank
Hey,
you. Thank you
that's
for telling
new-
me that beforehand.
New name of Val's podcast. Self-Hired Slaughterhouse.
Oh my
Any
gosh.
topic that comes on is going right to the cutting board.
Right.
Tagline, let's go. Amazing. So you have a couple of reiterations. So I like to do this like a Quentin Tarantino movie, where you kind of start at the end where you are today,
Okay.
and then we fill in the whole backstory as we go.
Okay.
It makes it more exciting. I'm a fan as well.
I like that you just slipped that in there.
Yes.
And that's nice. It's like little, yeah, we did this and now I'm a fan of you. Okay. I should do that with people. I'll be like, wow, you're really great. And now I'm going to stalk you. And then I'll just look elsewhere so that they can't make eye contact
Look
and
down.
ask me what
Always
I just
look
said.
down. Or up, as if you're
Look down.
pondering, but you're really just avoiding awkward moments. There's a million little things you can do.
I cannot look up because I have recently realized that when I look up, one of my eyeballs goes slightly awry.
Retardo. Very good. Nice.
Not an appropriate word
It's fine.
to use.
Oh, excuse
is
me.
it? Oh,
Well, in a Spanish accent.
I'm
Might
pretty
be.
sure you just said to slow down in
Just-
Italian. For me, it's a musical term.
Yes, it is.
My eye doesn't slow down.
Right.
It wanders.
Right.
It wanders.
Right.
It goes.
It goes to another place. Your left eye travels to another dimension.
I don't know which eye it is. Okay, hang on. Val. No, Val, look at me in the eyes. Which way is my eye going?
Kristina's trying to propose to Val over here.
But I can't see him.
They look normal to me.
Yeah.
Val's
He's a
being-
gentleman.
Val's
He's a
being
gentleman.
polite,
That's why
yeah.
he's here. That's
Who gave you a complex about your eye?
No, I saw it. I saw it.
no. That was a job interview. Be honest.
Could you imagine that job interview? So what do you think? What's happening? What is? Do you need help? Are you having a seizure? And I'd be like, nothing's wrong.
One of my eyes is just curling to the back of my head.
But I wouldn't know that. They would see it and
Right.
be like, oh no,
The horrors.
panic.
But you discovered it yourself when you were looking in the mirror, but looking up into the abyss.
No, you
Perhaps for an Instagram photo.
No, my Instagram photos don't showcase that
You're right.
wandering
You do
eye.
look directly into the camera, which
Yeah.
is a huge no-no for 2019.
Is it?
100%.
Well, I'm sorry.
Look up any...
I'm in
yeah.
the wrong rat cycle.
You are in the wrong rat cycle. Well done. Name of Kristina's new podcast, In the Wrong Rat Cycle.
Rat cycle?
I like it. I like it a lot.
Look, hey, I can look where I like in my Instagram. People
Yes.
can judge me and I will never know. That's the whole point of social media.
Or they might just start DMing you and arguing with you about things that they disagree with you
You
about.
can only argue if someone's responding to that.
That's
I
a
just
good
give
point.
Chan my social media channel. She'll respond. She's
Very
got the best responses.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I need that.
Chan is my roommate. For those of you who have just joined us,
Thank you. It's good. Actually, listen, slow down on those ones because we're going to have to pay you for those.
you mean
so-
retardo?
Yes. See, there you go again.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a Spanish verb, to retreat. To retreat. I think it is. Moving on. No, that's
Brie,
revolver.
What is the definition of...
Revolver. That's what that is. It's a verb. To come back. I took Spanish 9. It's okay. Just relax. I'm pretty intelligent. Moving forward here. Plowing ahead.
I asked Brie a question. Do my questions not count? Are you allowed to ask Brie the questions?
Well, I
Because
have
I'm
to- I
pretty
have to
sure
vet
that she
them.
set up that both of us could.
Brie, do you have something for that?
Most of...
You're correct. It's slow down or delay.
Can you throw that up on here? So for those of you that are just watching, or just listening rather.
How many people are just watching
A lot of
with
people.
no audio?
No audio.
For those of
You'd
you...
be surprised.
Of you... I don't know sign language. Do you know sign language?
I don't.
Who are just watching. My eyes wander.
Yeah, there we go. Retardo, delay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice. Perfect.
Thank you, Brie.
Thank you for that one. Moving on.
Okay. Now we can. Thank you.
Now we can talk about reincarnation.
Oh.
Now that things are out of the way here. No, we will. Trust me, we will. But first, to piggyback off of your LinkedIn business description, or to piggyback off of that, and to piggyback off of your identity and how you present yourself a little bit, it's very interesting because I wanted to get to the hard fundamental basis of what you are versus what you've become, and so you'll paint yourself in this picture of this. I don't know.
How would you paint-
philosopher,
well, how would you-
stoic. Well, this is what
Really?
you 100%.
Thank you. That we needed Brie's face right then, because Brie's face was this.
Well, Brie doesn't have a camera on her.
Yeah, but I
But
can
maybe you
act.
should.
I just acted Brie.
No.
I just did that.
No, and we'll have to
You're
pay
welcome.
you for it too. But you would paint yourself in a certain light that I think dismisses your achievements and accomplishments. So it's important to get that to the surface. But on the topic of identity, I think that you have a very fluid identity and a very fluid perception of yourself, which I adore, if you will.
Love that word.
What has caused you to have this fluid identity and version of yourself? Because you don't present yourself in any which way. You just simply are. You show up. Next thing you know, there's a person sitting across the table from you.
You just said I was a philosopher. I mean, I prefer that definition.
Well,
Now I'm
it is
fluid.
what it is.
Well, yeah, fair. So your question is, what begot that fluidity?
Yes.
I think a lot of it came from being a transnational kid. So I'm from Hong Kong originally, and I feel like Hong Kong is my home.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way that I can never really explain because I was born there.
Right.
And so the sounds are familiar, the smells are familiar, the energy of that city feels like home. And then I moved at pretty, what I maybe wrongly, I don't know, but I think a pretty critical, what are you writing? What are you writing there?
I'm figuring, just I'm orchestrating.
Okay.
Watch me orchestrate.
Okay.
More importantly, have more notes than you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Here's the thing. I
okay,
put you in a
look.
position to talk more. That means I have more of time to write.
We might have to change that.
Yeah.
Tables might have to turn.
Mhm.
This is a big table.
I can go sit on that side if you want.
Okay.
That makes you feel better.
Well, no, I think I'm all right for now. But
All
thank
right.
you for
Go
giving me
ahead.
the freedom of choice. I used to, it probably sounds like I'm really sarcastic.
Yeah.
For those of you who have just joined us, Joss and I have had about 18 hours of conversation
Yeah.
coming up to this podcast, which was not planned.
No.
It was just a very serendipitous, happy coincidence that has left certainly me richer, and I think Joss hugely confused.
Yes. Moving on.
Moving on. So yes, my dry, sarcastic humor might not translate well. I've heard that before to new audiences. So
That's all right.
okay,
They'll learn to
well,
love.
Well, maybe not.
They can get past it. The accent, the accent can get you a lot further than you think.
It got me donuts once,
Very nice.
more than once. And anyway, so the move from Hong Kong to New Zealand was when I was 10 years old. And I will always remember a really important point. Have you, anyone ever had those moments where you're a child or you're growing up and you snapshot a memory?
Yes.
And you can go back to that memory
Mhm.
and you can see everything around it and you can feel what you felt. And you can sit in that memory as if you are looking at a picture, an emotional picture of that memory, as well as a visual picture of that memory. So for some reason in my life, and I don't know if everyone else has this, but I've had really random moments like that. And some of them are have nothing to do with anything. And others are really poignant points in my life. One of those points was being 10 years old and moving to New Zealand and everyone putting their hands up. And in those days, and in that school, you had to say present when they were calling roll call. And I said present, and everybody turned and looked at me. And I just come from Hong Kong. I just moved from Hong Kong, the busiest city that you can imagine, or one of, to New Zealand that has 18 people and 28 million sheep, relatively speaking.
Yes.
And I was terrified. I could walk on grass. I was allowed to do that. That was new. And so everything was so new. And then everybody looked at me because I didn't look like anybody else, except for Mowgli from the Jungle Book and my sisters.
Bree pulled that up.
What's that?
Nothing. Keep going.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, did you? Mowgli
Please,
from you
please.
put.
Please do.
Oh, you totally can. I mean, Mowgli was a fantastic child, very adventurous.
Right.
Anyway, not the most fortunate looking if Mowgli was a girl, but hey, that's life. And I realized that in order for me to get by, I needed to say present instead of present.
Precinct.
Present.
Like a jail. Like a precinct.
Maybe, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Funny how that is.
I started changing my accent, and first it was pretty conscious, and then I realized that I didn't want to have, and just before that, I remembered changing my way that I wrote just before I left Hong Kong, because I was like, well, I'm leaving. I think maybe I thought this, maybe I didn't. I mean, I was 9. What do you think when you're 9?
How many times
Candy.
have you lived this memory over in your head? I mean, you've probably rewritten it 100 times. Is this even true? Do you have documentation?
Yeah, no, I'm not even from Hong Kong. What?
Wow.
No, I am from Hong Kong. That really happened. But I changed every letter of the alphabet in my writing
Oh.
at a very young age so that I could have full choice on how I wanted to write. And so I borrowed different letters from different people's writing that I
Wow.
liked. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just change the A today. So I did that 26
6 times.
Thank you.
Very good.
Anyway, I see this is 18 words or 1,000.
No, that's okay.
that's that fluidity
Yes.
became a really integral part of who I am. And we spoke about this the other day. I think as I moved, we then moved at 14. I was 14 to Australia, to Melbourne, which was kind of in between the hustle and bustle of Hong Kong and the rural feel of New Zealand. So it was kind of a happy medium. There were more things to do as a teenager. I got boobs and stopped looking like Mowgli, and I became I guess you'd say significantly hotter, because
Nice.
that's not a high bar when you're Mowgli.
Mowgli is not a high bar.
No. So, I did pretty well in terms of transforming out of Mowgli-dom.
Mowgli-dom.
And so at every time I'd move, so that was 0 to 10, 10 to 14.
Yikes.
And then, and I also, when I was in New Zealand, because the education system was so much more advanced in the traditional, conventional sense of intelligence at the time, there are 8 different types. I skipped 2 years of school and was in a school that I was 12 when my peers were 15.
Wow.
Which was very difficult, especially when you don't know sex words and those things, and everyone else has raging hormones, and I'm just starting to not look like Mowgli.
Right. But still looking like Mowgli.
But still kind of looking... My teeth were bigger than the rest of my face. And
So did your face get larger, or did your teeth
Well,
get
I would-
smaller?
I don't think they shrink after.
I don't know.
No, I don't think... I think you would have to shave your teeth. I mean, they're fine now.
It's been done. Great smile.
Thanks.
Amazing.
Thanks. I made
Bravo.
it myself. I didn't. My parents
Did. Technically speaking, I was going to let you get away with that.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry. 8 types of intelligence. You said 8 types of intelligence. Sidebar.
I believe the last time I looked it up, I thought they were spatial, musical, mathematical, relational, emotional.
You're stuck at 5. She's stuck at 5. 9 types of intelligence,
9.
rather.
Okay, they added one.
Naturalist intelligence,
Oh,
musical,
naturalist.
musical intelligence, logical, mathematical intelligence,
Yeah.
existential intelligence, interpersonal intelligence,
Intra.
intra,
Yeah, not
In-
intra.
intra.
Interpersonal and intrapersonal.
Where? Oh, okay.
Oh,
Right. Yes. Sorry.
Oh.
I skipped. Sorry.
No, that was my mispronunciation.
No. You said interpersonal, and I said intra
I know.
at the end. We were both
Anyways.
right.
Yeah,
Fancy that.
fancy that. So there's many types of intelligence.
Okay. Yeah.
You got upgraded, if you will.
I got
pushed ahead?
upgraded I got pushed ahead. So I was 12 doing curriculum of a 15-year-old.
Right.
My reading age was way more advanced
Then-
than the convention or the standard
Right.
in the country at the time. And I don't attribute that to anything other than the fact that I came from a country that is very big on reading and
Academically
reading.
advanced.
Yeah, academically, quite strict.
Mm.
So all of that to say, the fluidity is kind of a part of my life. So I moved more than the rest of my family has.
Mhm.
So I then moved from Melbourne to the UK, and I finished my first degree, ran a small business.
Your
that was-
first degree in international business?
Yes.
Yes. From the University of Hong Kong?
No, that was in Melbourne. So Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology.
Wow.
The degree I actually started, which I wish I had done, was Asian Studies and International Trade at Victoria University, which was, unfortunately at the time, had not as good a reputation generally, but it was a much better curriculum. And because I didn't know that, I just went, okay, I'm going to transfer to the better university. So I got the better looking university. And I would have been much happier, I think, retrospectively, if I'd have chosen Asian Studies and International Trade, because the teachers were very passionate. Not that they weren't at RMIT, but it was just different. The curriculum was different. It was so well built. I would have been spending a year in China learning Mandarin, which is something I've always wanted to do. It's on my list. I will do it eventually. Yeah, so I started that degree, but then I graduated with the international business degree, and then I realized that I actually wanted to do music. Oh yeah, I randomly started doing a music business management course before I did that, because I traveled to the US for a year on and off. Kind of the equivalent of what I don't know what you call a gap year here.
Yeah, a gap year.
Oh, you do? You call it the same thing? Yeah, so kind of like that, kind of not. And the music business management degree was a load of shit.
Yikes.
So I left that. And and then I didn't go to Hong Kong University until after I'd been in the UK for 3 years. And then I moved back, and I had a midlife crisis at 24.
Perfect.
I know.
I'm on my way.
Yeah. Just not long to go now.
Oh, God.
But it was a good one, because I was running a small business that was a cattery. A cattery.
You make cats.
I do not make cats.
Swing and a miss.
But it was, I appreciate
What's a cattery?
Attempt.
I'm sorry.
It's like a cat hotel.
Right. So it's a room with many beds. Crazy cat lady. That's how I will introduce you.
For those of you who can't see Shantae, my roommate, she's wearing a jumper with a giant cat on it. It's terrifying.
So, I'm sorry, what is a cattery?
It's a cat hotel.
What is a cattery?
Like a kennel.
What?
Is it
It's
actually?
like a kennel for cats. Well, where do you put cats
Dead
when you
ass.
don't have friends?
Are we dead ass here?
What is... What?
Are you serious?
Shantae told me what dead ass is, and
I mean serious. For those of you.
we had
For
a conversation.
Kristina's audience.
Yes, for my audience,
Yeah.
the ones who are in a different animal cycle than Joss's
Well done.
animal cycle. Shantae and I were driving to my parents' for our Saturday run around the Burnaby Lake, because we're those guys.
Right.
And she was like, let me explain to you what
Dead ass means.
a whole bunch of things
Oh.
mean. It's like the list of today's colloquialisms. Right, yeah. And I think I did quite well.
Do you care to explain?
She tried to tell my dad how to use them. Also, he also, I think, did quite a good job.
My goodness.
I'd forgotten dead ass. One of them was punched or slapped. Oh, beat your face. Who would say that? People say that. And then we had this conversation, and we were like, well, what do you do if you're a makeup artist? You beat people's faces for a living.
I've never heard this before.
This is a real thing. People say that. I beat my... Like, in what context? I don't know a context where I'm talking about putting makeup on to begin with.
Oh, that's what it is?
Because
That's
I
what it
just
means?
do. Yes.
Oh.
This is what it means. I don't know that context already. Like, I don't say, excuse me, hey, I put makeup on today.
I beat my face for you. Hey girl, you want to come over and beat each other's faces?
You would never say that, because you don't want somebody to...
Beat my face. Please don't. I don't prefer it.
No, I don't want that either. But then there was the other saying, which was punch. What's the other one that was like, there was a beat my face, and then there was like a punch one that didn't mean punch.
Right. Okay. There's dead ass.
What? I don't. So when you say, how would I use this? Like, if
Dead
you say,
ass.
oh, this is a dead ass book, like it's...
Nah.
It's, okay, well then maybe this one is...
No. You'd be like, I brought all of these books here. And I'd be like, dead ass. And I'd be like, dead ass. Like, seriously? Like, seriously. Like, seriously? Like, seriously. Like, you brought a paper boat to a podcast. Like, dead ass?
I brought a dead ass paper boat.
Dead ass paper boat. No, that's what it is. Which is a great little marketing play here. I love it. So for those of you that don't know, that haven't Googled it yet, Kristina has a song called Paper Boats, and she just so politely and just eloquently took up our advertising space.
Dead ass.
Dead ass. She dead ass did it.
Yes, I did it, Val. Val said I did it,
Yes,
right.
Yes, valid Val.
Val just validated that.
Validating Val. New Instagram handle. Holler.
Yeah.
Sorry, I so derailed.
Was it? I thought we were finished with the other part of the conversation.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not chairman of this conversation. Apparently you are. You have the larger notebook.
I do have the larger notebook. I do sit here all the time. I thought about sitting on your side of the table at one time. People did not like that.
Why? Who's people?
We have direct feedback from all people across the globe. It's crazy if you actually think about it. So we're at a point now where we have like 100 people that will just listen. Like we don't have to like put it, like we'll put it out and they'll just get the little notification and then they'll listen. And so there's a lot of like direct feedback coming back all the time. So people hate my opinion and my voice at this stage in the game. I mean, 35 episodes in, I'm sure some people do.
Okay, so you just told me that people hated them, and then you just told me that you are sure that they did, which means you don't know at all. So of those 100 people, how many people have said, hey guy, I hate your voice.
Myself. See,
Okay,
like
that's
I used
one
to,
out of
I
100.
used to review every podcast. So I'd go through, cut it up, be an analyst into of what we had just done for like the first, 15, 20 episodes. And then we had lovely Brianna come along and start doing that for us, and other, wonderful little young ones that we have, not that Brianna's little or young, but we have had, yeah. We've had, we have new people that have joined our team and help debunk these podcasts and go deep into the depths of these conversations and do all that stuff for me. So now I don't have to listen to 3 hours of my own voice. Because as much as people may love it, I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you just debunked your own argument.
Thanks.
You just said, okay, let me just repeat what I heard. 100 people.
100 people.
Listen.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't count yourself in those 100 people.
Right.
Then you said, and they hate my voice. And then you said, I'm sure that they do. And then you said, well, I do.
Right.
And then you said, well, actually, I used to, but I don't hear it anymore. So we're back to the fact that there are 100 listeners who probably do like your voice. You just decided that they didn't.
Thank you.
Well, that's rude.
It is.
Sorry, 100 listeners.
The worst.
You're doing great.
Yeah. Damn subscribers, the worst. No, that's not it. It's just when you have a long, like if people have accused me of having a very monotone voice, because I don't get excited, right? So I try to have these big variances like I'm doing right now.
And you raise your eyebrows at the same time for dramatic effect.
And I try to make, emotions in the air just to try to like spur things up a little bit. But I do a very poor job of that because I'm always deeply ingrained in the conversation and my tone doesn't change. Anywho.
I think that's quite soothing. Isn't that a soothing quality?
Maybe.
Like if you were too sing-songy about things, some people would be like, oh, that's annoying. I had a lecturer during my first degree that honestly, I don't think there are certain people who should not speak.
You had a lecturer?
A lecturer.
You had a lecturer.
I had a lecturer at university.
Oh, wow. Dude, I hate your Canadian voice.
What's wrong with it? I thought it was pretty good.
Not.
What do you mean?
You
keep just
it
don't like it. What do you mean keep it at home?
You.
This is my job.
Keep your identity.
It's my job to be able to do this. I don't do the O's very well. Job. It's your job. Like people's jaw, like they drop their jaw a lot more.
Crazy.
Lots.
Just not with your identity, Anyways, so I try to keep the conversation grounded.
I think that's fair.
In a consistent.
I think that's a fair thing to do.
It is, but it's over. This is a question for you guys, where it's like over a 2-hour span, a 2.5 hour span, 3 hour span. Shout out to Steve Rio, the one we just released.
Oh yes.
Is it not redundant? I don't know. These are questions and conversations.
So maybe then for those 100 listeners who are probably listening right now,
right?
If they provide you with this direct feedback, that's so valuable.
So valuable.
How many of you enjoy Joss's rich, grounded voice?
Rich and grounded. Funny, great segue there. Just to try to get the spotlight off of me as quickly as possible.
Good. Yeah, that wasn't obvious at all.
No. Kristina just shooting holes through my entire conversation infrastructure continuously, and she hasn't yet
with love, of course,
with love and caring and compassion.
Yeah.
She hasn't yet to debunk my choice of vocabulary rather than vernacular.
Okay, yes, I did very wrongly use that word.
It's okay. But grounded. Let's think about this. I try to keep the conversation grounded. You talk about grounded theory. Do you remember that?
I do. It's in Daring Greatly.
Brilliant.
Can you help me?
Thank you. Which one?
Just
this one?
Yep, hold those.
Brilliant.
I
So what
believe-
is grounded theory? Because we've talked about this before, and I think it's got a lot of value.
I think so too. I was so blown away when I first looked at the definition of grounded theory. Grounded theory researchers are required. I
As she flips through the pages.
notes and references. I do really
various
like
scribbles on pages.
I didn't scribble. I don't write on these.
Oh, I saw
No,
something.
I mean, I really
Dog marked? Ear dog?
Eared.
What's that called?
dog-eared.
Dog-eared.
Isn't it dog-eared?
Yeah. The pages.
Okay, wholehearted. We're at wholehearted parenting. I'm not sure that. I think that I need.
That's all right.
Final thoughts. In the 9 months that it took me to shape and prune a dozen years of research into this book, I've revisited this quote at least 100 times, and truthfully, I normally come back to it in fits of rage or with tear-stained desperation, thinking maybe this is all bullshit or it's not worth vulnerability. That's not the part that I wanted. Appendix: grounded theory and my research process.
Thank you.
Whichever you prefer. Okay, so the most difficult challenges of becoming a grounded theory researcher are acknowledging that it is virtually impossible to understand grounded theory methodology prior to using it, 2, developing the courage to let the research participants define the research problem, and 3, letting go of your own interests and preconceived ideas to trust in emergence.
What does that mean?
Well, I mean, you have to read the book.
Right. What is the book?
The book is Daring Greatly by Brene Brown, and it's qualitative research. And so Brene Brown was a doctoral student who then moves into behavioral research. In what she talks about vulnerability. In grounded theory, we don't. Here we go. I should have highlighted this.
Yes.
Maybe I will later. In grounded theory, we don't start with a problem or a hypothesis or a literature review. We start with a topic. We let the participants define the problem or their main concern about the topic. We develop a theory, and then we see how and where it fits in the literature. So grounded theory is from my understanding, is you don't start with a problem. You start with a topic, and then you let the participants talk amongst themselves, and you interview however many it was thousands upon thousands of sampling. You research, you've come up with the theory based on
The research.
based on the conversation.
Based on the conversation.
Based on
so
what people are
you don't start
saying.
with a hypothesis.
You don't start with a hypothesis.
You reverse engineer the whole
You
situation.
reverse engineer.
So how's
Yeah.
that practical? What does that mean?
Why are you asking me this question? This is a Brene Brown question.
No, but it's a question for you. This is why you're on the podcast.
Well, I've never conducted it. I just told you, you have to do it before you do it. Why don't you do it?
But the concept is.
The concept.
I was trying to throw you the alley-oop
Oh,
there.
right. Well, we don't have a group of participants that we can start having a conversation with.
But
There's you and
do
me.
you not think this is more of a macro conversation that you could have? Rather than starting something with a question that alludes to an answer, you then start with a topic and find the questions and the answers as you go. You reverse engineer the process.
Yes, but I don't know that is still grounded theory if there's only you and me.
Right. You need 1,000 people, 100 people.
I mean, I don't think it's grounded theory. I think that's just a choice of conversation. Then, I mean, I think grounded theory, you need to have, when you read this book, which I highly recommend that you do, I think you'll understand you need to have an idea of the topic that you want to get to, not the bottom of, but get to the bottom of.
Yes.
So vulnerability, Brene Brown talks about vulnerability, and I think she in the book talks about how it started as something else, and as she took it to thousands of participants, she realized that like, let's say, for example, what does it take to be a great leader? Could have been the topic. And vulnerability could have been what came out of that. And I don't want to misquote her, so I'm saying it could have been that. But I think to me, that's what I think on the very surface, on those few lines that I read that fascinated me to read more and learn more about grounded theory. I think that's what she was doing. She came in with a topic and it was like, oh, this is actually all about vulnerability. She didn't go in asking people to talk about how to be vulnerable. It emerged that was something that was the common thread,
right?
Or the thing that rises to the top as the most pertinent subject or the most pertinent topic for discussion and for.
It's interesting. That's very much what we do that's very much what we do here.
It feels like it is, and I think that's what led me to be so fascinated by your podcast and how you have conversations with people. I've listened to, and actually I watched a lot of the podcasts, which is why I'm sitting on a slight angle.
Right. I noticed. You're very aware. Very good. Very nice.
Am I? Well, you haven't matched me, so I've clearly not inspired you to change.
Yes, but you have 2 camera angles on you. I only have 1. That's half on me, and we'll only get the side angle. But that's okay.
So shouldn't that give you more rise to... Okay. Well, you do you. I mean, after
30-something episodes, you just don't care anymore.
Dead ass?
Dead ass.
You dead ass don't care.
Well done. Well done.
Did I do that right?
Very good. Very
Thumbs up from Val.
I'm joking. I love you people. I'll do anything for you, but I just try to keep my voice there because at the end of the day, it is an audio platform.
You did say this to me, and I hadn't realized it because I always watch the YouTube,
right?
And I love watching the YouTube channel because even the profile is, I get something.
You get facial expression
and hand gestures,
and hands, yes,
hand acting.
Yes, you were a rapper in another life.
You've said that before.
Yes.
I would love to be a rapper in another life.
You could be a rapper in this life. Have you thought about it?
I have.
Rhymes are simple.
Many times they are not simple. And also, I think I would be quite possibly the worst rapper you've ever heard.
Have you listened to some rappers these days? They're pretty bad.
I still have, just like when you go to see stand-up comedy.
Right.
They could be terrible, but I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that stand-up comedian. I don't want to put myself up there like that. That is terrifying. To get up and fail brilliantly. No, please, you do an open mic.
No. That's not my lane. My lane is right here behind the recordings. That's where my lane is.
In profile.
In profile, absolutely. No, you should go do an open mic. That's perfect for you. I would pay to see you either succeed or fail. Either one, I don't care.
You would pay to see me fail.
That's fine too.
That's
entertainment either way.
So
same thing we watch these rappers for. It's really a hard thing to do. Well, you do. Come on. I
don't watch rappers to fail. I watch rappers.
Which rappers are you tuned into today? In 2019.
Somebody help me. Bree, help me. Who are the top?
She's
you
like,
can't.
Tupac,
She'll put it on
Biggie.
the screen and then everyone will know that I don't. Excuse me, Tupac is one of the legends. And his mother recently passed away.
No.
Actually, yes.
What's her name? Fenny? Well, cut that out. I'm so sorry. Afeni Shakur. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. I apologize.
I believe it or not.
Yes.
Used to very much enjoy hip hop and rap.
And you don't like it anymore. Is it because you don't approve of the vernacular? That is the appropriate use of the word.
Appropriate use of the word vernacular?
Is it?
Is it a geographical
location?
So rap is it geographically? I think you and Kevin Hahn have had a conversation about how rap is all encompassing. Believe it. I think I remember.
But if we're talking about previous generations of rap, it was geographically located and did have a certain vernacular, and different areas do have their own vernacular around hip hop and music.
All right, yeah.
So
I'll take that.
That being said,
yeah.
Their vernacular. Fuck, what was my point?
I do that all the time. I can't help you, darling.
I pulled a Joe Budden. You get that reference, though.
Nope.
No.
Who's Joe Budden?
Don't worry about that one.
Oh, no. Everybody all of a sudden dislikes me.
Yeah.
Strongly.
Turned off. Tune that podcast out. They're going to go back to the Joe Budden podcast.
Oh, no.
He is a podcaster. He's a former hip-hop personality, current hip-hop personality.
I'm sorry, Mr. Button.
Mr. Budden.
Oh.
But Mr. Button, that's pretty sick too. Like Benjamin.
Oh, so it's Budden? Like,
Budden.
okay,
Yeah.
well then I also mispronounced your name.
Slander all over the place. We need a cease and desist next thing, you know?
Goodness. Well, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Anyways, rapper in another life, stand-up comedian in another life, perhaps in this one. I would, again, pay for both of those things.
You'd have to pay a lot of money.
You know what? We've had multiple comedians on the podcast, and all they always say is just like, hey, just go out, just get 5 minutes.
Who was the person that you had on? And he's from Vancouver, and it was the first one that I watched, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I can tell you that we've had two.
Oh, okay. Well, tell me the two. I mean, that's not
I'd
a
rather
long...
watch you stumble a little bit here. No, we had Gavin Matz, and we had...
Yes.
Gavin Matz, yeah. So Gavin Matz is on Comedy Central now. He's a great guy.
Yes.
And incredibly funny, awkward, weird, quiet, from New West, great guy. But his advice is just go ahead, get up there, get 5 minutes. You can't say no until
really funny.
No, he's not. See, this is the thing. Sorry, Gav. Like super funny on stage. Don't get me wrong. I went to a show the night before, and he is a great comedian, but he's not funny. He's just fucking awkward. No, it is. Like, we had a great podcast. You listened to it clearly.
I did.
But I'm like, the whole time when you meet him and you interact with them, you're like, hey, where's, like, there's the setup. Oh, okay, you're being awkward. Where's the setup? And then the punchline never comes. That's just how he is. But that's brilliant because he's birthed a great career out of that.
I mean, yeah, and I'm a fan of dry humor.
I know.
Oh, yes, that's true.
And
you probably all gathered that by now.
People all get that at this point.
Okay.
Anywho, so... Yes, you're a fan, but I think you should go and you should try. That's advice as not from a podcast host, but from a friend. You should go and try. I'll laugh. I have a great fake laugh that I won't demonstrate here currently, but you can see if you would go up.
Why will you not demonstrate the fake laugh? What's a good fake laugh for you? What is that?
You know what? There's a really good laugh that you could bring up right now. I think that's a good fake laugh. I'm going to see if you figure that one out.
Bree's not going to save you right now.
Yeah, she could. No, she could.
Yeah, she definitely could, but I don't think that's as entertaining as listening to the actual authentic fake laugh.
No, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there one time. We're not there.
Maybe I'll say something really funny and then you'll actually laugh.
Good luck.
I know.
You've been trying for a while now.
I haven't, actually. There you go. There's a little chuckle. We're halfway there. Anywho.
But you're not a comedian. That's not the path that you've chosen. But you are a lot of things. You're someone who I think, in your current reiteration of these 7-year cycles, because everyone goes through 7-year cycles.
Yeah.
It's what I've learned is that you every 7 years your entire molecular structure is reborn in a way. It has recycled itself, and you are now composed of new cells. And that's why every 7 years is a very monumental moment in your life, or should be, and you should reflect on that.
It's also the 7-year itch. This is where the 7-year itch has come from, right?
I don't know what that is.
Okay. The 7-year itch is in relationships, where after 7 years you start to feel like...
Are you speaking from experience here?
I did leave a relationship that I was in for 7 years.
Wow.
From 17 to 24.
Crazy. What a life, what a life.
Had a midlife crisis.
Nice, at 24, that's right. Those two things coincided. Mm-hmm. So after that, so in your current reiteration of this 7-year cycle, you're someone I think that is self-actualized. But post self-actualization, which we have talked about.
We have.
And
didn't I send you a message the other day that said, I think I found an article that referred to Maslow's hierarchy of needs and his unpublished notes.
No, you did not.
Then I think I just thought that I should probably do that.
That would be
and
very
this is where
cool.
the should became a very dangerous word because I never did. I think I did, actually.
You're lying.
I could be.
Anyways, so for those that don't know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is... Maybe, Bree, you could find it for us here. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a very interesting... It's basically what... Actually, I'll have you explain it because you're most definitely more knowledgeable than me. How would you describe Maslow's hierarchy of needs? How many levels are there?
Well, I think Bree is bringing it up now. But it's basically a pyramid that looks akin to the food pyramid that was debunked recently also. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a theory in psychology proposed by Abraham Maslow in his 1943 paper, A Theory of Human Motivation. In Psychological Review, Maslow subsequently extended the idea to include his observations of humans' innate curiosity. You thought I was just saying that, didn't you?
For a minute, and everyone else on
tricked
audio thought that
you.
you were too. So the hierarchy goes, whoa.
So physiological is first.
Yes.
So that's food, shelter, all that sort of stuff. Then safety. And
So food, shelter, water,
food, shelter, water.
safety, no bears eating me,
Exactly.
love and belonging,
Love and belonging. So community, feeling like you're part of a tribe, or family, or those sorts of things. Self-esteem. So feeling that you are worth it.
confident.
Confident. And self-actualization is currently the top of that pyramid.
So 4 of those levels made sense to me, and the 5th one does not.
Why?
What is self? I mean, you're just talking to a developed ape here. What is self-actualization? How would you describe that?
Aren't we all? And I think we all have very different answers to that question. I think if you are self-effacing, and we have, I mean, if you stepped up, in my opinion, and literally thought about yourself taking rungs on that ladder, do I feel physiologically safe? Yes, I'm alive, I'm breathing, nothing is falling off of me. Things might be drooping at this point in my different animal cycle, but I'm safe, right? I'm physiologically okay.
Yeah,
I'm
you
alive.
have some water, you're okay.
I have some water, I'm okay.
Yes.
I'm safe. I'm not being attacked. I'm not, my fight or flight mechanism, although that is a different conversation altogether. My fight or flight mechanism is not triggered. I feel safe. Okay. I feel love and belonging. I have friends. I have family. I have people that I care about and who care about me. I feel like I'm part of something. And that's, collectivism at its
finest.
I have self-esteem. I think that can be one that really can fluctuate, but if you've got all of those other things, and you get to, okay, I have a good sense of self-esteem. I feel like at my core, I'm a good person. Now I've got all of those rungs of the ladder. I've got them. They're down. So you sit at the top of this plateau, this particular plateau, and you go, well, who am I? That's self-actualization.
Cliffhanger. Cut.
Pause.
That's the preview.
Pause for dramatic effect.
I love it.
But the interesting thing that we discovered, I say we, me, myself, and I.
The 3 versions of you.
Yep.
Yes.
Out of 12. In an article that I think my friend, who's also my boss, sent me, he had more notes that he didn't publish. And I'll see if I can find that article at some point. But it was fascinating because I have all of these theories that are based on everything and nothing at the same time. And one of my biggest reservations or concerns in coming here today was to give you a whole bunch of theories that are absolute... what's the word when something is... fabrications, or they're not grounded in enough fact.
Logic or truth.
Well, fact, yeah, logic or truth. But the reality is when it comes to this kind of squishy, emotional, like inner meatbag stuff, we're meatbags. I call humans meatbags.
Inner meatbag.
Affectionately.
So this is inner meatbag.
Inner meatbags,
stuff.
Workings. It's hard to know when you've finished researching. It's hard to know when enough is enough, right? So I kind of... for the longest time have been very careful about what I say, what I put online, because I think that a little bit of knowledge is a whole lot worse than ignorance, rather than a great deal of knowledge. But I also am now at the point where fundamentally I don't know that I could ever know enough.
Right.
To be able to say something categorically.
With a complete certainty.
Right. So anyway, that was a little sidebar.
Yes.
I'd been thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs because I'd started writing, I will call them some thoughts on a page. And I was like, well, what's next? Because we have so many things as in this particular kind of society where we're self-actualized. We have food, water, safety, shelter, belonging,
Yes.
self-esteem. We feel good. We live in one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And I make enough money to not only get by, and we are the precious, precious few. What now? When you sit on that top? And actually, I think it was around that time that I discovered the Self-Hired brand and the podcast.
Brilliant.
Serendipitously. And I was like, well, these people are talking about what now? Because all of the people that I have watched so far, I believe most of the people who are on your podcast are having conversations about this. So I was like, okay, there's this really wonderful, beautiful, precious few who are having these conversations. And we are younger than anyone ever has been able to be in history. But with the exception of monarchs, so with the exception of rulers of empires who were born into rule or who were afforded this freak amount of power, with those people as the exception, when else in history have we been able to have the freedom and safety and belonging and physiological ability to be able to have these conversations? So there must be more than the pyramid. And then what is next? And what I called it, which then I realized, of course, somebody smarter than me, happens to also be Maslow, had already thought of, was conscious evolution. So now we have freedom of choice in a way that we've never had before, but so many of us, and in a way that we're so populous, right? So we have an entire city of people who can think this way now, who are not monarchs, who do not have the power individually, but we have the power collectively. We've never, ever been given a framework within which to deal with those conversations. Maybe this is where you can start researching grounded theory in your spare time, just because you have all of that spare time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'm with you. Kind of. So we have our first 4 levels, which are fairly rudimentary for us in the Western world. For you, for us in Vancouver, which is just the most privileged or one of the most privileged places on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, if you earn $30,000 a year, you're in the top 1%, right? So it's just like, here you go, red carpet, essentially.
Yeah.
So we all have these first 4 met. The self-actualization part, maybe we have to earn in a sense, or we have to discover. That's not just given to us by privilege, if you will. Or self-actualization just something that comes with it?
I think I would agree with that. I think
Right.
that we are provided with the opportunity to self-actualize. I think some people
but
are not.
many of us don't.
But I also think that there's an element in there that because this Maslow's hierarchy of needs was built in an era that so many things were beyond our control. So I don't know that necessarily all human beings, especially with their surroundings, have been afforded the opportunity to be able to be self-actualized in the same way. So you have spoken very openly and very bravely about your childhood, about having. May I bring this back up in this
Sure,
episode?
No problem. It's your show.
About having a broken family and how that can psychologically prevent you from reaching other levels, I think is something that we're not really taking into account in that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So there are some people that I've met, I have very dear friends that I know can't get to the point where they feel self-actualized, even though the door is open to them. They might not feel, and that might actually, when you really think about it, come back to safety. Could be emotional safety in place of physical safety. It doesn't have to be physical safety. And I do think one of my other weird random theories is that and I'm sure that there is evidence to support this and probably to counter it, but our reptilian brains don't necessarily recognize people, like faces. They don't recognize faces or time. And so we spend a lot of our lives trying to reconcile those scars that have been inflicted upon us, or we've inflicted upon ourselves, or the environment has inflicted upon us through life. So if our reptilian brains are still trying to resolve things, that same reptilian brain, I'm itching, funnily, the back of my head, because apparently that's where
your reptilian brain is. Your brain,
is it?
Brainstem, yeah.
Okay.
It's the first layer of your brain.
Okay. So that part of brain. Also, if it doesn't, my theory is, or my like
Your
thinking,
thought.
my thought is, if I don't have a need to run away for fear of my life, because a bear is not going, I'm not worried about a bear eating me, I will create other kinds of emotional drama in place of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I believe there's part of that in the Untethered Soul that talks about it, that talks about that voice in our head.
The need for danger, in a
The
way.
need- and that, yeah, that,
Yes.
that we are built to do certain things. We are built, our primal instincts. And as you look at this, I guess, from an anthropological perspective, I think if you were to look at modern day societies and those people who could be potentially a little bit more evolved in certain aspects in terms of their primal versus, what's the other part of your brain? The other brain?
Prefrontal cortex, your developed brain.
Okay, developed brain. We'll go with that because I can't remember. Prefrontal cortex.
Cortex, yeah. That's the thinking part of your brain.
Okay.
There's one more. Bree, could you throw that up? Layers of the brain. Just randomly, just throw it up there anytime, because I need to understand and remember that for next time.
I think
The fuck? Reptilian, cerebral, prefrontal cortex?
Potentially, but I have a guest that I would love you to
should
speak
know.
to
Who's
about
that?
this. Her name is Deanna, and she has, I think she's just finished her master's in social emotional learning.
Deanna?
Deanna,
You've been summoned. I'm just kidding.
yeah, I'm passing the torch flame.
Yes.
She could have amazing, incredible conversations.
And she would know what the layers of the brain are.
Yes,
And the
because she
layers of-
teaches young people in school. She's a school teacher, and she teaches social emotional learning to at-risk and affected
How young?
children between the ages of 4 and 11.
Perfect.
I
We're on the
believe.
same level there. So we have three main parts of the brain: the cerebrum, motor cortex. No, this is not what I'm thinking of. Hippocampus and spinal cord.
The thought centers of the brain, maybe?
Maybe that might be it.
What are the thought centers? I mean, these are the lobes.
I don't know any of this stuff.
No.
We don't want the lobes. We want the layers. As we've developed through time, I know I'm being so picky.
It's good to be specific.
Uh,
I mean, you're picking brains.
brain layers. We are picking apart brains here on the podcast
Mm-hmm.
today. Layers, functions, meaning. No. Layers of the scalp, skin of the scalp. Cerebral cortex. No, we want below that.
Layers of the human brain.
Oh, someone is going to tell me.
Bree, can you look up thought centers of the brain?
Thought centers of the brain. This is actually quite important, and I should. Of the amygdala. Oh.
6 major parts of the brain and how they ...
Ah.
ellipses. Brain of emotions? No.
Anywho,
Okay.
I digress.
Evolution of the brain?
Evolution of the brain. That might be it.
Brain evolutionary brain parts explained?
Our brains can't even get to the parts of the brain
We
to
can't
understand
even find
this.
the interweb
It's
brain.
ridiculous.
Brainstem, cerebral.
Brainstem. This is. I think it's. So what I'm looking for, what I think it is reptilian brain is the first one. That's the brainstem and the hippocampus.
Okay.
Then you're looking at the cerebellum, which is the slightly developed brain, like where
The
we
cerebellum?
Cerebellum, rather. Gosh, which is where we developed basic social functions.
Okay.
And then the prefrontal cortex, where we started to develop deeper thought, deeper meaning, and be able to consciously.
Okay, so yes.
The limbic
sorry.
system.
The limbic system is
Yes. that would
located on
be-
both sides of the thalamus, includes the hypothalamus or hypothalamus,
I don't know.
amygdala, and the
Talk-
hippocampus. Hippocampus?
Talking is not my strong suit, especially when it comes to multi.
Oh, you should start a
syllabic.
podcast then.
Yeah,
That's-
I know. Ridiculous. Anywho, what was the basis of this conversation?
We were talking about the different
Parts of
sections.
the brain.
Yes, and my
Your thought, your theory.
Yes, my thought
Your
was about
unproven
my
theory.
unproven theory, or yet
Yes.
to be proven, or probably pieced together from some
That's fine.
other scholars.
This is a place where you can think.
It is ThinkSpace.
Thank you.
I see what you did there.
Yes.
Yeah, my thought is that if you don't have that fight or flight mechanism, but you are more primal in
Yes.
your ways of being, I guess, as a human, you will translate that into emotional danger.
Right. So this is why I think that this is Joe Rogan theory. You should release wolves on the streets.
Okay.
I think that would do our species very well.
Right.
Because you reintroduce survival of the fittest. Again, we'd have real drama and trauma in our lives, so we wouldn't worry about all this other bullshit.
You are right. Actually, theoretically, I would agree.
Theoretically,
I would
people
agree.
would die, but people die anyways.
I mean, dying by wolf.
It's probably
Really?
not the best.
I mean, well, it's probably not the best, but like, how cool would that be? If someone's like, what happened? This afternoon, my fear of death this afternoon was walking in these stiletto boots across Main and 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
That's the end.
That's
that was
it.
my
That's
fear.
it. That's
I
done.
thought I wasn't going to make it,
Yeah.
and then it was going to become the flashing man.
But if
and
a
then
wolf was
it was
there-
going to go red, and I was going to die
That was it.
because I couldn't make
You have
it.
a deep fear of death.
I don't have a deep fear of death anymore. I have an average fear of death
Right.
now. I think I have a healthy fear of death.
Right. A constant
Like, I don't wanna
existential
do it.
crisis. Yeah, like you
No,
don't
but
wanna,
it's not an existential crisis anymore. We
Right.
had this conversation.
Okay, anyways.
We're good about, I mean, I'm not good with, like, don't kill me. Don't put the wolves
You're
onto
all
me.
right.
I don't want the wolves.
But you could handle them if they were there. Is that what you're saying?
I would
For the
call
record.
somebody. I think I would try and flash. I would stab them with my shoes. It would give me
That's
a
why
reason
you
to
have the
take off
stilettos.
these shoes.
Brilliant.
I can't walk in them.
Boots were not meant for walking.
They weren't.
They were not.
I would show you, but I feel like it would be
Too much of a sidebar.
too much.
Of a sidebar.
Also, I'm not flexible.
Fair. But you should be. Anyways, whatever. So,
Should is.
again,
I mean-
linguistic. Let's not.
I mean, I'm okay flexibility wise.
5 out of 10.
Can't dance. Coordination is the problem that I have.
Right.
If we're really going
Proprioception,
there.
in a way.
Sorry.
Proprioception.
Oh, you said this word. I really liked this word.
Nice.
Proprioception.
Yes.
Which is like understanding of my surroundings.
Yes, your spatial awareness.
Snap. Jinx.
Cheers.
Cheers is what you say when
Cheers. Cheers,
you...
mate.
Cheers. Yeah, great.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was in another life from England. No, I'm joking. Totally wasn't. But I wish I was. I hate a Canadian accent. It's the worst. But
I don't think it's the worst.
few things more worse than a Canadian accent.
Few things more worse than a Canadian accent.
This is why I didn't
So
want to. This is why I didn't want to hear,
articulate he
folks. This is the reason. I'm just joking. No, I'm sorry. Let's go back. So yes, you have this theory of that we don't have direct crisis, so we make crisis.
And I have to be very, very clear about this because
You,
yes,
us.
we
I'll
my
include
12, my
myself.
12. Okay, you can include yourself.
Thank you.
You know, we don't have the same. We
Yes.
don't have the same level of crisis
That we should naturally.
that we are currently built to have.
Right.
I'm not sure that we should have it. I do believe in evolution, and conscious evolution.
Right.
But the thought that I had was I sat back one day. It was around the time that I was drying my hands, and just stay with me because this is. I wonder if anyone else has thought this. I was drying my hands, and it says on the sign, "We've saved 12 trees, or whatever, or 1 tree, right? By doing this." And I'm like, "But how many trees have you killed in electricity trees? How many electricity trees have you taken?" Like, if you say, we save this much money in trees, but how much have you spent in other forms of energy?
Right.
Which one is actually better? Right? Like, because you always say, "Oh, I'm going to dry my hands with a hand dryer instead of with with paper." Is it better?
Right. Where's that electricity coming from? Is it hydroelectricity?
Yeah, where is that
rivers
electric- yeah.
dammed?
Yeah,
Have
what's-
salmon? How many salmon did you kill?
Have you killed?
For me to dry my hands.
For me to dry my
How
hands.
ironic is that?
Is ironic the right use then?
Probably not. Usually don't.
It sounds,
Usually don't.
I
have
mean, I
guests.
would believe you because I wouldn't know.
Thank you. Most listeners did until you called me out.
Well,
But it's
I
okay.
don't know if I'm wrong though. So
Yeah, you might be right.
Well,
So
we'll
how
never
many?
know.
How many? how many salmon have you killed rather than trees have you saved?
Well, I just
Are trees
don't-
really the problem? Do we not have a lot of them?
Are there not trees that are planted for that purpose?
For this specific
and
use.
is that for that specific use, and in the meantime are generating oxygen, right?
Right. So
Anyway,
yes.
but it was around that same time
Right.
that I was thinking about trees
Yep.
and those things that I thought about something else.
That you forgot. Well done.
You got one of those. Now I got my strike. Is that the right word?
Yes.
Yep.
3
I struck.
strikes and you're
Yes,
out.
yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. Yeah, I only used one. What were you talking about?
The wolves' existential
Oh,
crisis.
right. Yes. Thank you. So then, while I was having this thought about trees and hand dryers,
I told you shouldn't go on that sidebar. I warned you. I gave you the look.
Did
I said,
you?
don't talk about this.
I should listen
and you said,
more.
no, hold on. I got this. And turns out you didn't
Is
have
that
it.
the exchange that happened just with my wandering
Absolutely.
eyes and your eyes?
And that's what you would get if you listened or you watched the video version of this podcast. But audio listeners are just like, what the fuck are they talking about? So,
Right. Sorry, audio listeners.
sorry,
I feel like I'm in trouble now.
terribly.
Okay, but while I was having that thought about
Yes.
the hand dryers, I was also thinking, well, it's great that we are evolving, but when we do evolve, what are we going to lose also? Like, what are our other primal functions that we thoroughly enjoy at the moment?
Oh no.
We enjoy sex. We enjoy emotional drama to a certain point.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
We enjoy. Have you ever seen The Invention of Lying?
No.
Ricky Gervais film.
Brilliant.
A great film for people who want to trial the theory of Honesty Week. I did a thing called Honesty Week. It was really difficult. You know how difficult it is to be honest beyond what the societal convention of honesty is?
Even when it's one of your core values. Crazy.
It is one of my core values, so I had to challenge it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be honest past what honesty
Do you
is-
look fat in that dress? No.
so my first response would
A
be,
little bit.
if someone did, in my opinion, I'd be like, I think so.
Right.
But then I realized, okay, I then had to build criteria around my honesty week. So I was like, okay, first off, I just offended everybody
Right.
quite deeply. And so that was hard. Then I realized, okay, I can be honest when it is serving the purpose of that context. I don't need to be honest. I had to then realize that the honesty that I needed to have could not cross a line into malice. Because if I looked at if a person that I didn't like said, do I look fat in this? And I said, yeah, that would just be rude. But if anyone came to me, if someone who I had no thought one way or another about said, do I look fat in this? What I realized by drawing these kind of creating this framework for myself was the answer that I think is least judgmental and most honestly responsive to that question is, do you feel like you are fat in this? Are you asking me if you look larger in my opinion? What do you want? What are you actually asking me? If someone says, does this look good on me? And I could say, I'm not a stylist. If you're asking my personal opinion because you respect my style, I'm going to say no. I don't think so.
Okay.
And that's the end of the story. They might be like, oh, well, I think I look great. And I'll be like, good for you. I have no further, this has nothing to do with me. But when people ask, we're layered as a society by so many things that we second guess. And once I started doing this Honesty Week thing, I was like, wow, but I realized that there were certain things that I'd go, oh, I don't like this about this person. And so it had to go both ways. I had to have a mirror. Otherwise I was failing. I couldn't do it unless I first said to myself, why is this my response? If you said to me, oh, I have a wandering eye, I'd be like, okay. That would be the end of that conversation. If you said, I'm worried about my wandering eye, I would go,
You should see a doctor.
well, depending on how I felt about you, I might be like, well, what have you done about it?
Yeah.
Or I could say, yeah, it looks a bit weird. You should probably get it fixed. Don't ask me if you don't want my opinion. But that,
Tough voice.
but yes, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just gets a little bit lower for
Yeah.
that. But the point is, I would only ever say that if I knew that I wasn't being malicious about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I would first look at myself and say, okay, do I have a problem that I haven't addressed? And I guess I'm trying to find an example of it, because it has happened a lot where I've gone, oh, my ego's hurt. Actually, you've said something that's offended me. Like, someone will turn around and be like, well, I feel like I look big in this. And I'd be like, yeah, I mean, compared to the other stuff that you've worn, yeah, you do. You look bigger than you did in the other stuff if you were trying on two things.
See, that's an honest answer.
Yeah.
That's the best honest answer. So
Well,
it's honesty
for
with
you.
compassion.
It's an observation, but it's still just an opinion,
Right.
right?
Is it true? Is it
But
not
if
true?
they turned around then and said, well,
You look
you know,
fat in those jeans.
I don't trust your opinion, I'd be like, oh. And then if I went to say something back and went to say something that was like, well, out of everything, you look stupid in all of it, then I'd know that, like, actually that's coming from my own ego. So my response then, I had to hold myself accountable when people would say things to me that were honest, and I'd be like, wow, that really hurt my ego. Wow, I felt, and I would have conversations, so I'd be like, I'm feeling really insecure. I feel very insecure. And there was one time, okay, here's an example. That was a terrible example before, I'm sorry. I'm getting there, I'm meandering my way over. But I went to the beach, and I have actor friends who are just stunning, and they're just absolutely beautiful, and they have friends who are beautiful. And I remember sitting down on the beach, and I've had chronic psoriasis for 17 years, so I was very conscious of my body for a long time. And I saw these girls who literally looked like they walked off of a Victoria's Secret like brochure page thing, when you had brochures before the internet. Who has anyway, they looked like serious supermodels. And I literally turned around to one of the girls and I was like, oh, you're gorgeous. I'm very intimidated right now. And then I took my clothes off and sat down, and she was like, oh, I don't know what to do with that information. And I was like, I don't know either. This was literally, this is how
life.
So many of my honesty weeks have gone. And they become uncomfortable, I become uncomfortable, then I say it. And then all of a sudden, when you do that enough, it's like, oh.
It's pointless.
I wanted to say that to Brie today, but see, I was like, she's so beautiful. I keep looking at Brie. I've seen Chan a lot. That's why. I get the luxury of seeing Chan every day.
It's cute.
Mm-hmm. But there's a point where you go, oh, I'm going to say this. Do I want to make that person uncomfortable for a really long time? Maybe not. I don't know this person well enough. I know I can joke with Val. He got me a lighter. We're good.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Right.
But you gauge your level of honesty. But you have to challenge it. And you have to put that mirror up for yourself first in order for it to work fully. I'm not explaining this well. I should
That's
write
okay.
something about it.
No, I have a thought on that.
Okay,
I have
please.
many thoughts on that.
Oh. We've got 8 hours left.
Radical truth and radical transparency are paramount in organizations. I'm reading a Ray Dalio book right now.
A what, sorry?
Ray Dalio book.
Okay.
That's much of what he speaks about. Ray Dalio manages the largest hedge fund in the world, Bridgewater. Anyways, not important. But his concept of building organizations with radical truth and radical transparency, meaning everything's on the table. This he has created, because everything is on the table, he has created an idea meritocracy, which is a very interesting concept. What that means in plain English is that the best ideas win, period, because everyone's radically open and radically transparent. So, but your truth and your words and your opinions get weighted against the merits of your person. He's built algorithms and systems for this.
Wow.
And has built an amazing organization as a result of this. But I'm just saying radical truth and radical transparency work. However, it has to constantly have a background. It has to constantly be contrasted. So you can't just put something out there. It doesn't work like that, or it doesn't work successfully. And I think maybe that's what you've found in your honesty weeks.
Contextualized.
It has to be contextualized. You have to have
Yes.
something directly on the background of that to say, oh, this is true in this scenario.
Right.
But truth is a fluid concept. So that's why we have to give it context.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and it's so multidimensional.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you're honest, like, I would love to, that's a good book to read. I'm
Principles by Ray Dalio. Very good. That's why we have a notebook. You are losing on lines.
Sure. By Ray
Dalio.
double L?
One L.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'll find it.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. I drink so much water today. It's always embarrassing. It's the worst. I
think that's a good thing.
No, it
to
is.
do.
But in these situations, it's not. Anyways, like it's incredibly unprofessional. It's the worst. Oh, excuse me, while we're doing this live recording.
What's the other option? Hold it in and die?
Bucket.
Someone did once. Someone died. I think there was there was a competition years and years ago that was "Don't wee for the wee," and someone died.
You know what? That's really interesting, but I think it's
don't mean
ridiculous that you would be so conservative around your other theories and saying that you don't want to put that stuff out there because you don't know if it's true, and then you just come with these fucking ridiculous stories
I
around
feel like
dying
that was true.
from not peeing.
Brie, was that all?
Relatively notable in pop culture. I've heard stories of that. I've heard of somebody drinking.
Brianna's our pop culture expert.
Yes, drinking like 100 water bottles and then
Dying.
like on a competition for like on a radio show.
Yeah.
Then they get sued.
We're not a proponent of that. We don't endorse that in any way, shape, or form. Okay, people
No,
do pee. Follow my lead. If I can be a leader for anything in any industry, that is what I would like to condone.
Is timely urination.
Thank you. I pride myself on those. That's on my LinkedIn profile.
Which we're all going to check out later. 101 people will
101.
have viewed you. Do you see on a LinkedIn profile how many people view you?
I have no idea. But that's all right. It's okay. It's 5 out of 10. Too young to have a good. It's like I
so
always
many
laugh.
things just happened in your mind. Nobody put those together.
No one did. That's fine. It's usually what happens on here. That's the fun of it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's ridiculous when like you're a 12-year-old or something like that, and you're like, you're applying for your first job, and you're like, submit a resume, and you're like, well, like I opened a candy bar last week. Is that an accomplishment? Like, like you try to put weird shit on there. Like, I did walk the dog. That's some responsibility.
That is a responsibility.
No.
As a 12-year-old, I think if you say I walk my dog every day, I mean, I'll take it. That's extra points if your dog is a wolf.
Super extra points if your dog is a wolf. In fact, that'll get you the job.
Population control, check.
Yes. I take a leadership role in my community. I walk a wolf every day.
Walk a wolf. Then let him go.
Yeah, weird. Anyways.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Mm-hmm.
We never finished the thought. One of the thoughts we never finished because there's a lot of them.
Okay. There
People,
are. You're right.
People keep track. It's bad. So what we need to do is go back on that. We need to talk about Maslow again because we got to the self-actualization part,
Right.
but we didn't get past that part. So you had coined it a name. What was the name?
I thought it would be something along the lines of conscious evolution.
Conscious evolution. So self-actualization is who am I?
Mm-hmm.
What am I?
Yeah.
A bag of flesh. But it's past that thought.
Yeah.
So conscious evolution, what does that mean?
Well, I don't know.
What was your thought?
That was where the thought ended.
Oh, so that's why we didn't go past that.
Well, yeah, because there wasn't a path. I mean, okay, Brie, could you please look up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, unpublished notes,
Yep.
after self-actualization?
Because that's like, being the narcissist that I am and the
That you're not.
egotistical
Well,
maniac.
Okay. Yeah.
I believe that I'm at that level of self-actualization. And you get past that, you dig deep into your emotional, spiritual, physical, mental, hormonal systems, every inch of your being. You try to go and dig deep to find meaning, because when you're a person like myself or yourself, you have no collective identity. And so you try to find collective identity through a purpose, or through a process rather, of self-actualization, of like, who am I? What do I belong to? That's why nations...
But that's belonging.
That's belonging,
That's
but
not
it's still part of your identity.
Well,
Do you
but
not
I think
believe?
well, I'm not sure.
I
'cause
think those two things are linked.
I think they could be, yeah, very well. But I don't know.
Who am I at the core? Who am I spiritually, emotionally?
Well,
right?
who am I who am I at my core is different to who am I in the context of others.
But they're interrelated,
They are,
especially in
I'm
2019.
not disagreeing with you. They are
You're
interrelated.
challenging me. This is
I'm
what
challenge-
sparring is like.
Yeah. Oh, right. Now
Yes.
I'm allowed to spar. Before you were bullying me.
You were
That's
always
what Bree
allowed
said.
to spar.
I think that I'm not sure whether or not self-actualization
Oh my
includes
God.
that sense of belonging.
Self-transcendence.
It is quite true that we live by bread alone when there is no bread. But what happens to our desires when there's plenty of bread and when our bellies are chronically filled? Abraham Maslow.
Good summary. Well done.
Self-transcendence. What is less... We've already covered the other bits. What is less well known is that Maslow amended his model near the end of his life, and so the conventional portrayal of his hierarchy is incomplete. In his later thinking, he argued that there is a higher level of development, what he called self-transcendence. We achieve this level by focusing on things beyond the self, like altruism, spiritual awakening, liberation from egocentricity,
That's
which
where
is
I'm
you
at.
trying to escape narcissism, and the unity of being. Here is how he put it. Transcendence refers to the very highest and most inclusive or holistic levels of human consciousness, behaving and relating as ends rather than means to oneself, to significant others, to human beings in general, to other species, to nature, and to the cosmos. The Farther Reaches of Human Nature, New York, 1971, page 269.
For your reference.
Thank you, Bree.
Thank you.
But that's fantastic. Like to have
very
that
well
thought,
done.
and then to think and then actually following on this, social psychology, Bree. If you can look up the fathers of social psychology. There are two main scholars of I believe it's social psychology. And I love this. I mean, what an amazing thing to explore in I love calling us the precious few.
Yes, the precious few.
It's the precious few. We're so lucky. And knowing that there is this next level, this self-transcendence
that we can get to.
that we're at, and then that message that I sent you yesterday after reading the end of that Barbara Deutsch book that talks about making the ceiling the floor.
Please provide more context around that.
I didn't bring my Kindle,
That's okay.
but there's an LA acting and life coach called Barbara Deutsch, and I just finished her book 2 days ago, and one of her concepts was making the ceiling the floor. And one of the things that she said that I really liked, it was a real light bulb moment for me, was when you need to ask yourself if you really love what you do and what you're working towards. And if you really love what you're working towards, when you have gotten to the point then, when you have felt like you have pushed as far as you can push, when you've worked as far as you can work, you have done everything that you can to, and you have reached a ceiling, you need to visualize that ceiling becoming the floor. Because what you did to get to that point, what you did to get to that ceiling, will not serve you for the next level. It's what served you to get to that level. So you need to reimagine where you are standing, and that ceiling needs to become the floor, and your perspective needs to shift accordingly. And we so often I talked very candidly with Joss recently about my recent fear of death, and I realized that I was running at a wall and at a wall and at a wall, and I wasn't thinking about passing through that wall, and death being 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, or however long it takes for someone fortunate or not to die. that's a blip in existence. Relating that to the ceiling and the floor analogy is you're rising up as high as you can. And then finally you've worked so hard, but our mindset is still in, I'm hitting a wall, but your behaviors and your actions are not changing at a, what's the word? Like, then you are not tectonically shifting. You're just using the same behaviors and wondering why you can't pass through. And so I think hitting the ceiling and visualizing that as the floor is where we're at for those of us who have the luxury of being self-actualized. And now we have just our precious few begun to think and talk collectively, which is where our renewed power is in today's society, about where we go next and what we choose to do. And my thoughts on a page, which have yet to be written, which have scratchings and
thoughts in a
notebooks.
mind that are kind of in notebooks, but
It combines those things, and it talks about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the concept of what comes past self-actualization, and then the return to collectivism and the return
of the Jedi.
of the Jedi, but in a landscape that we've never seen, that is so microtransactional, that is so highly, it's so fast-paced, and and our brains, and what is happening to our brains because of technology and our attention spans, and our need for the dopamine hits of social media, and our needs have changed. So we're in a whole new arena. And we, precious few, are the only ones who can have that conversation right now. And that's when I discovered Self-Hired.
Brilliant. Thank you for the promo.
Oh, you're welcome.
In that thought of yours that is semi-written down, how much do you think technology plays a part in that? And when I say technology, I mean specifically automation and AI, because I think that concept plays into a larger narrative of human transcendence.
How much do I think that...
It's not a question, more of a statement. Run with it, maybe. I don't know.
How much do I think that technology and AI plays into it? Like, I mean, how long is a piece of string? What I'm saying is we precious few need to be thinking about this and talking about it. There's so many things that are happening where someone said to me, I was thinking the other day, I'm surrounded by things that are wired, and then I am surrounded by things that I cannot see that are flying through the air. And yet we don't daily have a conversation about how that's affecting our brains.
Right. Bluetooth,
Wi-Fi, wireless headphones, any of those things. People just take them and put them in their faces without anyone I have ever met saying, I wonder where the signal is and what it's doing to my brain. Not one person have I met who has said that to me, ever.
Or thought it personally.
Someone says, yeah, well, I'm sure people have thought it. Maybe people just don't really want to talk to me about that sort of stuff, which is fair. I don't know a lot about technology. I'm not going to be able to answer that question.
You're not the person to ask.
I'm not the person to ask. I'm sure people who work at Apple may have had that question. But the reality is, you walk into a room and yet on the other side of things, medicine doesn't acknowledge energy exchange yet. So
what are we doing?
But Wi-Fi is totally okay. But me being an empath is weird witchy wibbliness.
Woo woo alert. She brought a candle to the podcast.
I brought a candle. I'm in the year of the rat. I'm a Leo.
Yeah. Crazy ass.
Right. Exactly. You said it.
I did.
What a crazy thing to say. What a crazy thing to say that me being born when I was born, I've associated with something. That's crazy. That's just hibbity jibbity. I don't know what, pretend that I'm some someone from somewhere that says that word.
But you keep bringing the conversation back to like it's within this context.
Mm-hmm.
It's odd that I would say this or think this or do this or have this train of thought.
Yes.
I mean, you really do like, oh, I'm Leo, you're the rat. I can't do your accent, but I can emulate your thought a little bit.
Yeah.
So within that, it's like you have this identity, this thought of yourself that exists in real life, in real time,
Mm-hmm.
that is, I've called fluid, but is very defined. Don't you think that you are in some way completely pigeonholed by your circumstance? Do you think you're at the point where you've transcended your circumstance, your experience?
I find it I'm going to turn this on you, Joss, because I find it very interesting that so much of your thoughts run around being restricted by things. You constantly ask me in the 18 hours of precursory conversation we've had, sparring, if you will. You constantly asked, don't you feel like that's restricting? Don't you feel, I don't like, you said to me that you didn't like being told what to think.
Mm-hmm.
And you would rather be put into a library. And what was my response to that?
Who put the books there?
Who chose the books? Even if it's one person, 10 people, 100 people, a culture chose those books. And I use that example because there are stories from various cultures where they don't want certain parts of history to be promoted in that country. So if you went into a library in a different country that didn't want you to know as a citizen of their country that they'd done something abhorrent, you would never know. You would feel that you had full freedom of thought. So when you ask me whether I feel restricted, I am always going to be restricted if I am always looking for a cage. I'm always going to feel that way if I'm always looking for the framework. We're in a finite world. We're in a finite, well, actually, try and talk to Stephen Hawking's mind. Use 5G. Get hold of Stephen Hawking on the other plane, because he's there. But the universe is made up of maths and restrictions and freedoms. When you keep asking whether I feel like I'm restricted by things, some of the best music in the world is made when you have 2 chords and you impose the restrictions of music theory onto a work. Some of the best music is made when you have an hour. Some of the greatest art is made in the greatest pain, in the greatest restriction. Is that restriction? Is it perspective? And I don't have the answer to that. I think we, precious few, can think about it. And yes, there are some times where you are restricted. That is what is happening. You have been robbed of your freedom of choice in so many ways that you cannot move. But in most contexts, I think in most contexts, we have some kind of choice. And I am saying this purely from a position where I have never had my safety threatened past something that I can survive.
So in that, do you think that, but that I can say something that directly contradicts that? Like, so yes, is it a cage? You're just seeing a cage. There's infinite cages. That's what you're saying. It's abundant. It's everywhere. It's simply the way you're looking at it.
Infinite cages is a wonderful oxymoron.
Yeah, it's nice. But then, like a person like yourself, and we've had conversations around how you prime others to see you, and how you prime others to not paint a cage around you. We've had conversations around how you can shift the space-time vortex around yourself so people see you in a certain life, and you all of a sudden break those cages. So even in breaking those cages, you're still acknowledging that they're there.
Yes, they're there they're my frameworks that I feel. So yes, yeah, I agree with you. The context that we had was I was talking about the fact that my relationship status was something that I was always really worried. My relationship status, my orientation were things that I was very worried about sharing. And the reason that I chose not to share those things was because I felt like they tainted a person's behavior towards me one way or another. And so I wanted to give the most blank slate that I could. Right?
Right.
So in that sense, I felt like I was caged by another person's perception, if that's what you were saying. Right? And I wanted to break out of that cage. The reality is, if I don't, and this is a good example, because if I don't tell somebody what my orientation is or my relationship status is, they cannot use that to form any kind of opinion. They have to treat me void of that information. The cage is a perception, is their perception. So all I'm doing is, I'm not really taking anything from or giving anything to, because it was my information to give. Society tells us that it's normal to say, oh, I'm in a relationship. And then society tells us that if we don't want to talk to somebody, we can use that as an excuse that they can then choose to respond to. Do you know how difficult it is to tell somebody that you are not interested in them without giving them a hard reason? And every woman in the room will have that feeling, and a lot of men in the room, and a lot of everybody in between. Everybody has had a situation where they've used an excuse that is conventionally appropriate and a lie. And I realized I didn't want to have that lie.
Because it was your honesty week.
My life is honesty week now.
It's a hard life to live.
It's hard, but it forces me, again, this is the removal of the cage. The removal of the cage or the identification of the cage. Because I don't, and when you ask me, just to come full circle to what you first asked me about why I'm fluid, sounds odd.
Yeah.
So let's not do that again. Why I have a kind of
Freedom?
transient undertone.
Thank you.
Is because I wasn't granted the luxury of having ingrained societal frameworks, because I kept having to leave them. So if I don't have, and if people who are transnational kids, mixed race children, adults, I mean, I'm a mixed race adult, but people who are from multiple cultures, who have very, very little potentially to hold on to in the conventional sense, you need to find universal themes that transcend, to come back to Maslow, that transcend societal, cultural consciousness. And part of that is me deciding that I only have power over, I don't have power over how someone perceives me, but I'm certainly not going to fuel their fire. If someone says to me, oh, in a work meeting, oh, is your boyfriend around? How many men do you know, and this is being quite binary, I know I will say that, this is a chip on my shoulder. My response to the person that asked me that was not to answer the question. I said, can I ask you a question first? How many men do you ask that question to if their wife is around? How many men do you ask when you first met a person? And they were like, oh. And I said, how many times do you think a man asks me that question? How many times do you think I ask a man that question? How many times have you seen a woman ask a man that question when they have just met in a work context? And do you still need the answer to that question?
And that is a hell no, of course, at that point. You've deconstructed everything, their entire thoughts.
And I've protected my privacy.
At the
That's
same
my
time.
private life.
But perhaps severed a relationship?
How?
I don't know.
I mean, if I sever that relationship because someone is offended and their ego has responded badly to that,
You don't
I
need
don't
that
think
one.
I need to be doing business with that person.
Fair enough.
And I think if someone asked me if I had a position of, if I was in a position of needing to explain my actions, I think I could quite articulately explain that I didn't really understand why that was a pertinent question for me in any sense other than to gauge something that had nothing to do with my capability as a business person.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, when I first joined the industry, that was one of my biggest issues, was I would walk into places and I would be, you know, the boss's pretty secretary. Doesn't matter that my title is what it was. And this was thankfully in the past, but my response to that was very important because I could turn around and say, no, I don't want you to say that about me. No, I don't like this. But my reaction, in my mind, I had to go away, think about my honesty week, pull my guts out, go, how am I feeling? What's my ego? What am I thinking about this? What would my best version of myself do? And the best version of myself is not to shame somebody. Because when you shame somebody, you put them into a fear-based position where they're going to go into their reptilian brain and fight or fly. And I don't want to do that because nobody learns in that way. The guy that tries to pick me up in a club that comes up to me and is like, hey, yo, he's not trying to offend me. He's doing what he's socially been told is all he can kind of gather up and conjure with his courage to get me to talk to him more. That's a difficult thing to do, right? But, I mean, maybe not for you. Raise your eyebrow like it's easy, it's a walk in the park. You just walk up to someone and be like, hey, I'm on a podcast. I have a monotone voice that's deep and grounded and rich. My name is Joss, it means luck.
Your words, not mine.
It's true. My point is that I think to come mid-circle, back to when we were talking about Maslow's hierarchy, and to transcendence. What was it called?
Self-transcendence.
Self-transcendence. To come to self-transcendence, for me, you asked me what self-actualization is, but to come to self-transcendence is to get to a point where I go, how do I want to behave in a way that may or may not have happened before, but I know I can justify well and doesn't hurt anybody or isn't intended to hurt anybody. And the difficult thing there is that's differentiating and holding that mirror up to myself and saying, it's not my problem if someone then says, you are the worst person on the planet, I hate you for saying those things. That's not my problem, because I've justified to myself and made sure I've held up that mirror to say, actually, I truly believe that this is not helpful. This does not progress us as a species. For you to ask me something that takes power away from what I'm capable of, that has nothing to do with the context of what we're standing in, and yet you feel that it is socially acceptable for you to ask, how do I help give you a different option? I don't know what the question was.
No, it's fine. So you're someone. So it's very, very interesting because throughout all this, you say, okay, look at the mirror, look directly in the mirror, and say, as the best version of myself, how would this person act?
Right.
Right. Constantly going back to your grounded morals as a person, which is very interesting because you're someone who, like, that becomes your identity in a way. That becomes that is you.
Yeah.
That is solely you. Those 2 or 3 things that you ground yourself on.
Rather than religion or, not there's anything wrong with religion, rather than constructs that have told you it is because it is.
Yes.
Those go.
Yeah.
Those are out the window. It is because it is, for us precious few, is not enough. Because people tell us that it's okay to put headphones in our heads without asking what's happening to the rest of our bodies as a result.
Mm-hmm.
People, you've said it a number of times, people say this. People have told me.
Who?
Who are the people?
Who are the people?
And who do you want to believe and why? And if we can get to a point where, as a species, we are asking those questions earnestly, then I think we are truly self-effacing. And we are finally at a stage where we can make that ceiling, our ceiling, a floor, and then stand there in an open space and say, what kind of world do you want? What kind of world do you want to live in?
So beautiful. I mean, you're getting past a certain level, you're creating a new space and place to play, and you're creating space.
Individually.
Individually.
Because that's all I can do. That's all we all can do.
But you're knocking down the door. You're knocking down the ceiling, rather, making it the new floor.
I'm looking.
And having all of a sudden just a blue sky ahead of you, which is an amazing analogy and metaphor in itself.
Well, I would say that you're all doing that. This is ThinkSpace. Literally, it's in the name.
Thank you. That was the point. It's crazy that we're 30 whatever episodes in and you're the first one to bring that up. But it's, no, I agree. But, okay, Kristina, you're a person that stands in her power, has a certain level of confidence, ingenuity, spontaneity.
Spontaneity.
Thank you.
Sure, no worries.
Case in point.
I mean, it's a cool word. Ingenuity and spontaneity combined. It's a great portmanteau.
Thank you.
Spontaneity.
Unreal. Thank you.
Use it. It's yours. You made it.
Actually, it's my personal verbatim. Yeah. You're a person that stands in your power very much. You have such a divine confidence and divine femininity to you in a way. Where's the how-to manual? Can I buy the guide? Like, what's the formula to this? There's so many people. Like, this is my personal problem of, like, we live in a world that is not equal. Like, equality is a huge theme, but it's not equal. Men and women, black and white, whatever it may be. These are huge problems because the best ideas don't win, and the best voices are not heard. And in turn, our society goes backwards or doesn't progress as quickly as it should. I personally have a problem with that.
Okay.
So, in that, there's people like yourself that seem to transcend those societal constructs.
Transcendence is the theme, isn't it?
That is the How to Transcend with Kristina Lao.
Oh, my goodness. No, it's actually How to Transcend with Larry.
Oh,
from
right.
Transformation Centers, just so you know.
Got it. Plug.
But this person is my hero.
With a name like Larry.
With a name like Larry, who helped me to stop smoking after I smoked 20 to 40 cigarettes a day for 18 years. I think he's a hero. That guy saved my life.
Crazy.
And is now my life coach.
I love it. But the point being, where's the what's the formula? What's the recipe? Like, you have such a divine confidence. Where did it come from? How do I get it? And how do other women get it? Because that's the problem. That is the problem. We don't acknowledge that. There is not a equality in that. And because of that, people aren't winning. Our society is not winning. So yourself as someone who transcends that, how do you break that down?
We don't have all night.
Well,
and I don't have that answer. I appreciate very much that you think that. That's really touching. So thank you. I don't think I've said anything particularly new. I think I've just collected a bunch of thoughts that were other people's and arranged them in a particular way.
But it's created the product regardless.
For me, it's created my best version of me. So if I could tell somebody in a nutshell what they could best do to be their best selves, it would literally be to try. What else can you do? And ask questions. because my best version of me is never going to be any of your best versions of you. And if I try and tell you how to be the best version of me, we don't need more than one of me. That's the joy of the precious few. That's the joy of this society, is that we get to be collective again. Potentially. And I can only do what I can do to say, hey, I figured this out, and 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 this out. I'm going to talk about this, and this, and this, and this, and get to here. And you can take it or leave it. And if one thing hits you that takes you to the next part of your rabbit hole journey,
Right.
then I've done my precious little for these precious few. And that's why I don't want to tell you the name of these writings on a page, because I've got to finish writing them. But those small things, those micro changes that we make on a molecular level, on those tiny behaviors, in the picking up a piece of rubbish, when trash, garbage,
Junk.
picking something up, one thing, that might be your way of doing a tiny change. You doing this podcast, you bringing together those minds. I'm not going to tell you how to be me. That's pointless. I'm doing it. I'm busy. It's my time. You do your version of you. And one thing that Larry has always taught me is to transcend and include. So instead of you painting frames and asking about cages, take a step back and see what the best things are and take them up and make that ceiling the floor, and then just keep going.
Great way to come full circle there. Your thoughts always loop around. It's a wonderful journey. We go through kilometers and kilometers of...
It's a vortex of doom.
No, it's a trip around Stanley Park. That's all it is. It's an abyss.
It's an abyss.
It's an abyss.
Just the one, though, because it's the one abyss.
And it's your abyss. So
It's
don't try to recreate it.
Yes, it's
Stupid.
my fluid abyss. No, let's not. Let's just not call it that ever.
Yeah. You're one of those people that just continues to think and think and think and think and think.
Actually, yesterday for about 2 or 3 minutes, I don't think I did.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you do that? Nice. Good stuff. Cool. Cool. And that's good sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hard to achieve. Or easy to achieve. Up to you. Do you ever think that that's to your detriment? And do you think that there are other people on this planet that fail to stop the continuous rampage of thoughts? Like, is that
yes?
is that
the short
is that
answer
like
to the are there rampant thought thieves? Is that what you're saying? Are there thought pirates?
Thought Pirates?
Thought pirates.
Name of your podcast, Thought Pirates. Name of my new podcast. We're changing the title.
Add a podcast to your podcast.
I love it.
Like bow.
Bow?
Add a string to your podcast bow. You know, add a
Whatever.
string to your
Let me
bow.
get to
That's
the
a
question.
phrase. That is an actual
You're done. You're done.
dead ass. That is a phrase. It's true.
Yes. The question is there's these people that have these continuous trains of thought that never turn it off. You're one of those people. Who of those people do you look to today in your current evolution, in your current self, in this 7-year iteration of yourself? There's got to be people that you're looking to continuously that have that continuous thought, bang, 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 that you are looking to for some guidance, or you're just completely self-actualized, completely self-transcended.
Well, I'm sitting
and
here
you're
with you. I'm sitting here with you people in ThinkSpace. This
Right.
is what's happening.
Right.
I'm already here.
But who are you looking to? Which one?
I'm looking at you with my awkward, weird, like awry eye.
Well, you're looking at the screen. You're looking at the camera. I mean, half of them are. I'm getting half.
I'm looking,
Yeah.
I'm looking two ways.
I know.
Who am I looking at? Okay. What you're asking me is who's influencing me right now. Brene Brown is influencing me. Julia Cameron's influencing me. Rupi Kaur is influencing me. People that have been alive and are alive, and songwriters and poets, actors, they're influencing me. They're just tiny little pieces.
A million tiny pieces.
There are a million tiny pieces.
So of those people,
Mm-hmm.
of those type of people,
Mm-hmm.
like an Elon,
Oh no. Bring in.
like an Elon Musk type,
Okay, yeah.
or
I mean,
these
you
types,
love
or
Elon Musk.
Apollo Coelho, or I don't know,
Brene Brown.
Brene Brown.
Mm-hmm. Elizabeth Gilbert, another great one.
Amazing.
Okay.
If you could ask these types, in particular, say an Elon type, 5 questions,
Oh no.
or 3 questions,
You know, you asked me.
what
this-
would you ask?
What would I ask? I would ask Elon Musk. What would I ask Elon Musk? Does he have children?
Yes,
He does.
yes,
Oh, okay.
multiple.
Oh, okay.
Not that I stalk.
Okay, sure. I mean, I would. Bye. Oh, Bree's taken a leaf. I exposed Bree.
Super
Right.
exposed. It's all right. You called her beautiful earlier.
Yeah, I did. She's absolutely stunning. She's not here, so she doesn't have to feel uncomfortable.
Right.
So beautiful. Okay, what was the question? I was distracted.
Elon Musk, 5 questions. What
5
would you
questions for Elon Musk.
You should really have like the
I know that I should have these ready, but you know what? I don't know. I think part of me, I did have questions. I had questions that I wrote down.
Did you really?
Yep. Somewhere, not here actually. I think they were in my phone. But I don't know. I think I just want to have a conversation.
Right.
I think I'd want to have a conversation and say things. And depending on what he said, I'd want to ask more questions, you know, because I'd want to know things on the emotional side of what he thinks about what he wakes up thinking in the morning. Why is it so important for him to build these things? And not just why is it so important for him to build them in the conventional sense, but really what's the legacy that he wants? What does he want written on his eulogy was one of the questions. On his the epitaph. What does he want said at his eulogy? What does he want written on that tombstone? What does he want people to say he did? And why? Because I thought about this. I was like, why do I want to leave a legacy? Why is that so important to me? Where is that in my ego? What's such a big deal about legacy? If you don't subscribe to reincarnation, then what's the point? You become dust. Stardust, hopefully.
Well, here's the thing about legacy. The thing about legacy is that who has the greatest legacy of all time? Off the top of your head.
Buddha?
Yes. Or the example that comes to mind for me.
Okay.
It's Jesus.
Okay.
Right? Religious figures. So in the case of Jesus, right?
What was Jesus thinking?
What was Jesus thinking?
Like, I got to build this table today.
It's carpenter. Anyways.
He was a carpenter.
Yes.
Was he not?
He
Am
was.
I wrong?
No.
Jesus was a carpenter.
Yes, Jesus was a carpenter. But, we're 2,000 years from here. That's
Yeah.
2,000 years ago, technically, right?
Okay.
If we're,
Okay, sure.
if we're reading those books, that's what it says.
Yeah.
Okay. So even in that, so how long have humans existed? 50,000 years consciously. Humans. I mean, if you
Okay.
believe in evolution, let's
Yeah.
just say it's maybe 100,000 years that we've been evolving. 2,000 years of that. That's a flash. That's a flash in the pan. So what are you really fighting for your legacy for? If Jesus only had a 2,000 year legacy, or maybe it'll be a 3,000 year legacy.
Right.
Is that really worth
What?
fighting for? Am
Is
I
it?
going to get nailed to a cross for that? No, I don't want
I don't
that.
want to get nailed to
Any cross.
No.
So it's just like, what are we like? Legacy is really an egotistical mechanism in a way. It's almost like a cop out. It's like I'm satisfying me right now, but I'm really, what I want to say is I'm leaving a legacy for my children.
Right.
But what's 1 generation? What's 2? What's 5?
Yeah.
What's 50? So really, you're just playing your own little mind game. And this is the places I go to.
Ego game. Yeah,
Yes.
right. And I think that you go there because you are past self-actualization.
Well, thank you for stroking that ego.
Is it? Or is it just highlighting what we've been talking about the whole damn time?
God damn it. Okay, Kristina, we got to wrap. We've been here for a while.
I have to give you something.
Oh no.
And the first thing I need to do is so when I played my show, I made these little paper boats, and there's one for Val.
Oh my gosh.
And these little paper boats, I wrote with 100 little quotes, and there's one for each of you.
Oh my gosh.
Because you didn't get to come to the show, and I made many.
When was the show?
The show was on March 21st.
My goodness.
So these little boats, now the instructions, don't open it. The instructions for these little boats are at a time that you feel in your guts is the right time to open these boats. You must open them because inside there's a little quote from someone who I think is quite special. And it's meant to signify the song, the title of the series, Paper Boats, is about the transience of things. And, if I may...
You may.
When you each have your boats. There's one for Kevin too, here. Paper Boats is one of the songs that I wrote from a very special, dark and quiet place. All of my songs are as honest as I can bear. This one, I dare say, bears me to my bones. In this moment, in this story, one lovely little boat wasn't meant to last, as long as we might have liked. It's not the boat's fault for being made of paper. It's a beautiful boat. It can make it as far as it can, and then, well, it just can't anymore. Sometimes we see it before others do. In that case, we mourn, and often alone. Good thing we're humans and not paper boats then. There are times, though, where we know things are going to end. Understanding that it wasn't anybody's fault can be a little miniature light in the dark as we nurse our desperate, newly broken hearts. So you get to take these boats, and if you want to, you can listen to the song. But it's about the transience of life and the fact that you have to take apart the boat to get to the quote. I thought was quite nice. So that's the present for you. That's a present for all of you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Kristina. Thank you for your time.
And this is a present for you.
Oh my gosh.
Because...
This is the first gift I've gotten.
And I want to say a big shout out to Nardwar, the human serviette, because Nardwar taught us this trick.
He did. Can I?
And so I would like to send you props,
Nardwar.
I think you say. This
Props
is a Nardwar trick.
Did you... Okay. The Chronic. So, you listened to the podcast.
A long time ago.
A long time ago.
I've
Well done.
had that for some time.
Well done. When did you get this?
Time
when did
is...
you buy this?
After... It must have been just... it was after you'd asked me to come onto the show.
Yes.
And I had just listened, so it must have been, just after we met.
So, she just gave me a record of Dr. Dre The Chronic. This is the first album I ever really heard.
Well, now you can't steal it from your sister.
But now I can't steal it from anyone because it's been given to me.
And you have a record player in your hometown in Hornby.
I do.
Because
Which
you told me that.
Which is incredible attention to detail. So thank you, Miss Nardwar.
Welcome.
That's amazing. And I can't wait to play this on Hornby on that record player, and I will think of you. So thank you for this gift.
My pleasure.
That's incredibly thoughtful. Thank you. And thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
I challenge anyone to follow the thought of this podcast.
Transcend.
Transcend it, even. Where can people find you? How can they stalk you as you have once stalked us? Mm-hmm. How can they
And I will
dig
continue
deep into
to
you?
if I'm allowed. And if I'm not, then I probably just will get craftier about it. My website is KristinaLao.com. And, there's me and my friend Ian.
Oh, wow.
And
Hi, Ian. What a beautiful website.
Thanks. Yeah. And you can find me there and wandering around East Vancouver, drinking cups of tea, hanging out with Chan, who's very tired now. She looks very tired. I'm going to get in so much trouble. We've got to go.
We've got to go. We must end this immediately.
Yeah.
Well, we will try to find you at a local coffee or tea shop near you and bug you about the infinite transcendence you've achieved.
And come see a show.
And come see a show.
Mm-hmm.
Cheers, Kristina. Thank you.